Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call to order the Community of the Whole meeting for Monday, March 9th. And Council, I'm going to propose a few amendments to the agenda. So we have correspondence. I'm going to begin by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, and in particular, note our near neighbors, the Chiana First Nation, and also the Sauk First Nation as well. So with the agenda, two things to add. We have correspondence, one from Bev Bacon regarding the council priorities. And then also we have a number of letters from people regarding the Firehall project proposed governance model. So I'd like to add those. One other the big change I would like to add, though, is I'm wondering if we could move 8A, which is the correspondence for the Village Initiative and the Metchosin Agricultural Alliance Plan, and move that up after public participation. So we talk about it right after public participation and nearer to the presentations. So, Councillor.
So I'll move adoption of the agenda as amended.
Great. Seconder, Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? And none opposed, so that passes. Okay, so with that, I want to welcome Ms. Cindy Andrew and also Dr. Melissa Wan, and they are going to give us a presentation that we were unable to get a few weeks ago. So welcome, I'm glad we were able to fix the technical difficulties, and I'll turn things over to you now.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, technology is great when it works. So yet another reminder, not everything's in our control. So we appreciate your patience and perseverance. In particular, I want to give a shout out to Tina, who we've been liaising with to make sure that technology is on our side this time. We did, unfortunately, in that transition, lose Dr. Shelley Cook, who's the Executive Director of the Social Planning Council. So I'm pitching for her part in this evening's conversation. So, and Melissa will be my backup as we get going. So before I open up the slides, I want to, first of all, I should introduce myself. I'm Cindy Andrew, and I have the privilege of really wearing two hats. One is in supporting School District 62 health promoting schools work. An extension of that work happened years ago when we had a variety of senior leaders of nonprofit organizations sitting around a table along with the associate superintendent of the school district, basically calling for a need to do things differently when it came to supporting young people. And that was the genesis of what we now call the Village Initiative, a network of now about 70 organizations, including municipalities, nonprofits, government programs like Population Public Health, as evidenced by Dr. Wan's joining us here tonight. And so that is sort of the foundation from which we grew, was a recognition that we had people across the system saying, we can't keep up with the demands either. We need to do this work differently. And here we are. So I'm going to go find my slides, and this is where you cross your fingers and, you know, wish me well on my technology. Here we go. I hope that folks can see that. I won't be able to see if you have hands up or anything like that, so please feel free to just interject if you have questions. My screen primarily sees the slides. So thank you very much again for making the time. I want to also acknowledge Mayor Little's time and contribution to the discussions that have been had around a table that we call the Municipal Leaders Advisory Table, that brought together mayors across the West Shore and Sooke at a table to discuss some of the pressing matters related to supporting the health and well-being of young people and, by extension, their families. And at only the second meeting, there was basically unanimous support to say, applying a regional lens to this work and, you know, identifying common priorities we all have and approaching it from a regional collaborative lens makes good sense. And, you know, so with that unanimous support, we were tasked with the case to go away and basically come back with a business case around the investment of a mechanism, you know, truly a person to help support this work, and a backbone agency, if you will. And that led to the development of the business case that is in your agenda package this evening, and there for your discernment through your budget plan. So I'm going to just cruise on down here. I'm not sure why I'm not going down. Hang on. I'm going to move you around. There we go. So the opportunity in front of you is, as I had suggested, that this notion of a mechanism or a dedicated coordinator is really needed to serve as a central resource to drive change forward, and a human resource that will work with the multitude of many other partners, including those nonprofit service providers that we count on, including neighboring municipalities who have similar concerns and limited resources to actually impact some of those issues or opportunities that we know young people not only deserve, but frankly need as we think about how to promote community health, well-being, and frankly, safety as well. And, the good news is that this is an opportunity that is based and steeped in evidence, in fact, and I know that Dr. Wan will talk more of that as we move forward, but we're coming to you with basically an ask on behalf of the Table of Mayors, the Municipal Leaders Advisory, with this position that we recommend be invested in, and that I'm delighted to say has the backbone support of the Community Social Planning Council, who has identified the need to basically, lean in and further support the work across West Shore and Sooke as well. It seems glitchy here. There we go. Why this matters. And, I appreciate we have a short amount of time, and you'll hear more of this from Dr. Wan shortly. But, in short, here are some flags on the field that say we have, while a lot of young people are doing just fine, there are also an awful lot of them for whom there are struggles. And I don't think I have to tell anybody. I mean, many of us have probably been touched by some mental health challenges, social connection and isolation, and COVID certainly didn't help. And things like hope for the future, which is actually a very important metric to measure and really relates to the sense of agency and resiliency and optimism for the future. And again, most prominent in public discourse and most concerning that we hear a lot about is mental well-being related challenges, social emotional dysregulation in young people. That again is a flag to say, we don't get ahead of this, we're in trouble. And the good news is there's a lot of investment upstream that can be done that we know has a very strong evidence base behind it, and that does absolutely make a difference in terms of building protective factors. And again, I'm getting into Melissa's lane here. So last slide before I flip it over to Dr. Wan is that we have, here's the upside. We not only have very significant services and programs that are running currently across a variety of organizations. So in other words, we have a lot of strengths to build on. We have a table where we have senior elected officials saying, we know we need to do this work differently. We also know it's not really our lane, but here's an opportunity to support it and look at a more regional collaborative approach versus municipality or local government by local government. And certainly know that investments upstream have incredible promise in terms of promoting health and well-being and reducing the kinds of problematic behaviors that ultimately have significant impacts not only on individuals and families, but ultimately community. So I'm going to, I believe, flip it over to, oh, wait, I'll stop. Sorry, Melissa, I'm one ahead here. Another upside is we have this existing network, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, came together really on that need to say, we need to do things differently. None of us can keep up with the growth. We know, for instance, the school district said we're growing faster than we can keep up. And one of the executive directors of one of the nonprofit child and youth family serving organizations said, hey, school district, you're not the only ones. And we too are having a hard time keeping up on the demands. And we recognize there's the need, frankly, to work differently. So lots of strengths to build on, lots of existing services and supports, high degree of willingness and readiness to get around the same table, to have a more coordinated regional approach to some of the pressing issues. And before I flip it over, I do want to say that only, about 10 days or so ago now, the village hosted one of their leadership events for our community. Some of you had registered for that, and I'm sorry if I missed saying hello to you on site that day. That event brought together Dr. Jennifer Charlesworth, who is the BC representative for children and youth in our province, Dr. Rika Gustafson, who's the public health officer for Island Health, Paul Block, who is the school district superintendent, and Dr. Shelley Cook is the social planning council executive director. And I can tell you that there was firm support from the four of them for an investment in this kind of role, as there was from the feedback from the people in the room that day. I should also mention that the school district, who's sitting at the table along with public health, along with all of the mayors, has already indicated their commitment to this role, contributing $15,000 a year for 3 years as a proposed pilot project to get things going. So now I'm going to pass it over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Cindy. So like Cindy has already stated very well, youth are struggling in our communities and in our region, and investing in youth well-being, it's not only what the community is asking for, but it's actually a really, really smart investment, especially at a population strategic regional collaborative level. We know that the research demonstrates that investments in children and youth yield the highest returns for all of society, and many youth programs will pay for themselves down the line through improved economic potential and reduced spending on services. And beyond cost avoidance, these investments really lay the groundwork for long-term economic and social benefits to all communities in the West Shore. When youth are supported to thrive, they're better equipped to meaningfully contribute back to the community and strengthen the region's workforce, civic engagement, and overall resilience of the community. So Shelley Cook, Dr. Shelley Cook wasn't able to make it today, so Cindy's going to go ahead and finish off with our collective opportunity as well.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Wong. When we were working through the development of this business case, and I should mention and give credit certainly to Mayor Kobayashi of the city of Colwood, who really was the instigator of this advisory team and was very instrumental, and as was his CAO, in giving us feedback in the development of this business case. That we recognized we need a neutral body. We need a body for whom really the health and well-being and social planning is a level of expertise. I was delighted when I reached out and connected with the Social Planning Council, fresh off their strategic planning exercise, saying, yep, we know we've got work to do in the West Shore-Sooke. We're very interested. Our board chair is very interested. How can we help? And so for those of you not familiar with the Social Planning Council, they've actually been around for close to 100 years. Perhaps some of us who are West Shore and Sooke based would say, are often considered, basically they do a great job of serving the city, but what about us? Now I think they bumped that up and they recognize there is work here. And what can they bring? Well, they're neutral, they're nonpartisan, they're a regional organization that has worked collaboratively with all levels of government, including some municipal governments across our region, and the health and social sector, and with people with lived experience. And they have, what they're bringing to the table is basically the opportunity to leverage expertise, existing initiatives that can help. One that I just spoke about today with the Social Planning Council was basically a little GIS mapping exercise of the services and supports available across our region, which can do things like help identify where, in fact, there are dearths of services in high needs community and what do we need to do about that. So you can see why the value of a regional lens, not to mention bringing appropriate research and policy expertise to the fore with the backbone support of the Social Planning Council. They also have deep experience working alongside the various social service agencies. And I think that's an important piece of this. This is not about the Social Planning Council coming in and rescuing the day. This is about them providing, in essence, a missing link in terms of that regional coordination role across the sector, connecting and working with local governments and with the various service providers and funders, et cetera, to do this work differently. So the proposed approach, I've alluded to it many times now, is this dedicated coordinator as you can read there, that really, I mean, first, and want to reiterate that there are other communities in Canada, and in fact in British Columbia, that have used this kind of mechanism to tremendous gains. And a big part of what we're planning, of course, and we allude to it in the proposal before you, is an evaluation framework that can demonstrate, here are the metrics, here's where we're at, here's the kind of difference being made, here's where we need to go, with some good data that really helps inform decision making. So to give you a sense of what this coordinator role looks like, I won't speak to each one of those that you see there on the screen and is in your proposal, but really does play a fairly pivotal role. And, you know, I'm for those of you who have connected with the Village Initiative before, you'll appreciate my role has been, in essence, a bit of a hub role, a coordinator role to support the work of the village. The convening, getting the right people in the room, as we did when we had 120 leaders, including Jennifer Charlesworth and Paul Block and others a week or two ago. But it's these sorts of priority areas that you see before you on the screen that this role will be tasked to undertake. The coordinator would be embodied at the social planning councils end of things, which I think makes good sense. We want to keep it neutral. We want to keep it, from a regional lens, and also benefit from the opportunities of work they already have going on that naturally lend themselves to this work as well. So more than a 2-for-1, I have to say. So in closing, you know, this notion that we know municipal governments play a key role. The development of our proposal basically looked at, and I do want to give a shout out to Raquel Burgess, not with us this evening, but Dr. Burgess has leaned in substantially to help with this business case, and has really played a key role, and will continue to play a key role in supporting the work of the Social Planning Council and of the village. But as part of the business case development, we went through the OCPs and strategic plans of the municipalities. There's lots there that is related, that is similar across municipalities, but frankly, limited capacity to act on some of those issues. Good example is food insecurity, where there are clearly an array of community serving organizations who do that work. But again, the sort of coordinating mechanism, how do we help support them to do it better, to ensure that we're getting the right resources to the people who need it most efficiently? And I think I will stop sharing at this point and open it up for questions or comments. Perhaps I'll just check in with Dr. Wan to see if there's anything I missed that's really important for us to.
You got it all, Cindy. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Andrew and Dr. Wen, thank you very much. And I'm going to ask the committee if there are any questions or thoughts right now. And remember, we are going to talk about this in a few moments as well. Have a question myself if you meditate. A question, where are you at with approaching the other West Shore communities in terms of the funding?
Well, that was a great question, because that was first on my list that I was going to speak to, but in my excitement, I neglected to. I did mention earlier that the school district said, we believe in this, we're in for their 15K. City of Colwood has committed that they too are supportive. I have had verbal strong expressions of interest from several City of Langford elected officials, including the mayor. And a similar sentiment, but nothing definitive yet in terms of general support in principle for this this proposal from both District of Highlands and Sooke.
Great, thank you very much. And any other questions or thoughts? Mr. Pye?
Thanks through the chair. Thanks for all that information. In fact, it was so much information, we'd probably have to hear it all again, because that was incredible. One thing I didn't quite catch is there a need for physical space of some kind for this to take place? I didn't quite understand that.
Well, maybe a clarifying question on my part, if you don't mind, because I can tell you space to support service delivery is absolutely a priority from service providers' perspective across across the board. But if you're looking at specifically space to house this role, that's, I think certainly Social Planning Council, they are based in Victoria. I'm happy to report their Masters in Public Health and highly skilled person that will quite likely is preparing to take on this work, and I'm very excited about it, I should add, is a resident on the West Shore. So I think that, in terms of finding her space, most of us are used to working remotely, and I suspect that she'll jump around a little bit depending on where the work is. We also hope that, certainly the collaborative spirit prevails. So for instance, the city of Colwood has hosted meetings at their particular site on Wishart Road, and, we're flexible. What we don't want necessarily is, and for good reason, as to Mayor Kobayashi said, no one municipality should house this person all the time, because there'll be an inclination to treat that as their role, when in fact it is our regional role. So did that answer your question?
Okay. Well, Ms. Andrew and Dr. Wen, if you can hang out for a little bit, and you can catch our discussion as it comes up in the agenda here. And with that, thank you very much. And we're going to move on to a presentation from the Metchosin Agricultural Alliance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Alex Fletcher. I'm a farmer in Metchosin and a member of the Metchosin Agricultural Advisory Committee. I'm here tonight along with Robin and Peter on behalf of the Agricultural Plan Implementation Subcommittee of the Agricultural Advisory Committee of Metchosin. Over the past year, the committee has been considering how the Metchosin Agricultural Area Plan, adopted by the Council in 2024, can move from policy into practical implementation. The agricultural plan sets out a strong vision for agriculture in Metchosin that identifies priorities such as strengthening farm viability, protecting farmland, improving local food access, supporting agritourism, building climate resilience, and strengthening regional food systems. Importantly, the plan itself recognizes that implementation requires dedicated capacity. Goal 2.1 of the agricultural plan specifically calls for identifying an organization to carry out implementation or creating a new entity if needed. The consultant that we hired to develop Metchosin's Ag Plan emphasized to us repeatedly that agricultural plans are most effective when paired with a dedicated implementation organization. The work of the Agricultural Plan Implementation Subcommittee has been focused on exploring what that might look like in practice. The Agriculture Advisory Committee's role is to provide advice to Council, which is important, but it is not structured to operate programs, coordinate projects, or apply for funding. This severely limits the committee's capacity to be the lead entity for implementation of the plan. So we began by exploring whether existing organizations could support implementation of the Ag Plan, and Peter will speak more about this in a moment, or whether there may be value in creating a new farmer-led organization to fulfill that role. This led to the proposal of a Metchosin Agricultural Alliance. In looking at how other communities have approached this challenge, one example that stood out was Salt Spring Island. After completing their agricultural plan, farmers and community members there established the Salt Spring Island Agricultural Alliance. That organization now plays an important role in coordinating agricultural initiatives, accessing grant funding, supporting farm infrastructure and education programs, strengthening local food initiatives, and acting as a liaison between farmers, community organizations, and local government. One of the big projects they've done is they were able to form an abattoir on Salt Spring that now services chicken, beef, lamb, and pork. And they developed a composting facility that's solar powered to process abattoir waste and take community waste. And they've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that kind of project. So that kind of thing is a bit of inspiring in what's possible. The proposal we are bringing forward tonight is inspired by that model, but adapted to Metchosin. Before describing the concept further, I'll invite Peter to speak about the work the Agricultural Advisory Committee has already done to explore the potential of existing organizations to lead implementation of the plan. Then Robin will speak about what the proposed alliance could do and the importance of having an entity that can receive funding. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, and good evening. My name is Peter Chuttleber, and I'm a member of the Metchosin Agricultural Advisory Committee. As Alex noted, the Metchosin Agricultural Plan identifies the need for an organization to successfully support its implementation. This need is identified in the plan under a section entitled Goals, Item 2.1. This item notes that the Metchosin Agricultural Advisory Committee should determine if any existing organizations have the appropriate mandate, governance, and operation capacity to take on the goals identified in the Ag Plan. And if not, then establish a new group. Our first option was to work with an established local group. And with that in mind, we looked into 3 local farm-related organizations that might fit the bill. And it was very important that any organization be farmer-led, with an executive representing Metchosin's commercial farming community. The first organization we looked at was the Metchosin Farmers Institute, which, while no longer based in Metchosin, at one time shared many of the fundamental goals and values that would be important to Metchosin farmers. To get a better understanding of the MFI, Alex and I became members of the Institute and attended an annual general meeting to better understand the objectives and governance of the organization. We realized that the MFI is really no longer farmer-driven and now focuses much of its attention on the organization of spring and fall fairs and building rental, maintenance, and management of the Luxon Fairgrounds. We also considered the Metchosin Producers Association, which operates the Metchosin Farmers Market. And though the market provides space for several of Metchosin's market farmers, we did not feel that it is structured as a farmer-led body, with its focus primarily on the management and maintenance of the weekly farmers market. The other organization we considered is the newly minted Metchosin Grown Society. Its primary focus is establishment of a community garden. And while we believe that Metchosin's commercial farmers could cooperate with Metchosin Grown on common projects such as composting, community events, and educational opportunities, it does not currently have the capacity, governance, or resources to take on the broader aspects of the Ag Plan implementation. And through these discussions, it became clear that each of these organizations contributes important work, but none currently have the mandate or governance or capacity to act as a long-term implementation body for the Ag Plan. As a result, the subcommittee began exploring whether a new farmer-led organization specifically focused on agricultural plan implementation might be helpful. And so the concept we are bringing forward tonight is still at the very early stage, and we are sharing it with Council now to seek your input before any further steps are taken. And I'll now pass this over to Robin, who will speak about the Alliance, what it would do, and going forward.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin Tunnicliffe, chair of the Metchosin Agriculture Select Committee, and hopefully soon be member of the Metchosin Agricultural Alliance. We've really excited about establishing this organization because it will take care of the nuts and bolts of working through the agriculture plan. We've talked about, working with other organizations. Another one was the Metchosin Foundation, but it just seemed clumsy, to work through another organization. Our select committee isn't able to receive funds or to, our terms of reference are quite set on, helping council with agricultural decisions. So what we want to do with the Metchosin Agricultural Alliance is to receive grants, have community events, hire a coordinator, and then systematically work through that agricultural plan on all the items and do what needs to be done to implement them. And really, implementation takes money, so we're going to have to be looking for money actively in different places, and having an organization will just open up our horizons to, even fundraising, which we haven't really been able to do successfully as the select committee because we don't have a bank account. So that's kind of what we're envisioning doing. Our focus is really on implementing the Ag Plan. We want to work closely with the district And we're just so grateful to have this agricultural plan done. So thanks to Council for making that happen. And we just want to have some action on it. And this just really feels like the right vessel to carry that forward.
Great. Mr. Fletcher, Mr. Chettelberg, and Ms. Tunnicliffe, thank you very much. Committee, any questions? While you're thinking about it, I'll throw a question. Or Mayor Little, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to all three of you. Thank you for this work. Very ambitious and laudable. I'm just wondering about the Salt Spring Island Alliance model that you're taking a lot of the direction and some of the information from. And I'm wondering, how do they report back to the, so Salt Spring Island is a non-incorporated area, but they do have a local community commission now as of a couple of years ago. So the Salt Spring Island Initiative or the Alliance probably preceded that governing body. But I'm just wondering how they relate that information back to decision makers within the unincorporated area or back to the CRD. And then the same, how would the Metchosin Alliance communicate or bring back information for the district and council? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I can try to answer, and I don't have all the information about the Salt Spring Island mechanism. I do know that a lot of the members, there's a lot of organizational members, and I think there's a lot of crossover that way. And I think that'll be one of the main mechanisms for us, is that we would have strong representation from the Ag Committee on the Alliance, and there would be a lot of back and forth through the committee, and therefore through the to council as well that way. But we'd also be open to any ideas about how to have a more formal way of sort of relaying information and working together. That was something council was interested in.
Okay, so through the chair, you would report back through the agricultural committee or the Metchosin Agricultural Committee, and then it would come up to council on what is happening with moving forward on the plan's objectives.
Yeah, I think there'd be quite a bit of overlap between the committee and the Alliance, and there'd be a lot of working, collaborating together. And so I think that would be one natural way that there would be a direct path to council that way, but there could be other options too. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much. This is really encouraging development, and thanks to the group who put this together. As you've said, it's part of the Ag Plan to create a group, and this sounds like a good vehicle. What I'm a little bit wondering about, and perhaps it's along the lines of what Mayor Little was asking, one of the things I noticed from the committee is that it wants to advocate, I think, to government about various different issues. We have at the moment the Agricultural Advisory Select Committee who's giving us advice. We have the Peninsula Agricultural Advisory Commission that's giving us advice. And the third body might be the Alliance. And I'm just wondering if you've thought about that issue of, I'm not talking about the plan itself, but I guess the notion here is advising or advocating for farmers. Perhaps that's meant advocate for supportive agricultural policies. Perhaps that's focused at the province and the federal government, or is that also the local area?
Yeah, I think a big part of that was in the plan was to be able to address that there's so many issues that come up in discussions and challenges farmers face that are just not municipal in nature. And so we need to be able to advocate, whether it be through the municipality or otherwise, to especially, it's provincial policies that are also affected by federal funding and priorities. So having that option of being able to try to address bigger issues than just municipal, I think that's the main idea. And I think this would be another, having another organization that represents farmers to add to those efforts, and or work through council would be strengthen that effort. Yeah.
Super. I'm just thinking about having the same people providing advice in different formats versus efficiency and getting advice to us when you need it to get here. And I guess that would happen through our advisory select committee. The other question I had, if I could, I had a few questions about the farmer majority. So when I looked at the Salt Spring Island Agricultural Alliance, I see that it's a group of organizations that have come together, created an alliance. But here it looks like it would be more individuals would be part of it. And I'm just asking about that, a farmer majority, but then who else would be members of the organization? Residents of Metchosin, or is it mostly to be a farmer organization? And if so, how do we define farmer?
Yeah, one of our intentions and considerations was calling it a farmer alliance, and we lean towards agricultural alliance because we feel like it's really important to have people that aren't just farmers but who care about agriculture in the community. Partly because farmers are honestly overworked and burnt out and need broader support for doing this. And there is so much support in the community and desire to see more local agriculture and viability. So that's sort of the intention, is that we want to make sure there's still a strong farmer voice, but we also want to be inclusive and bring more people into it. Is there another part to that question? Oh, what's a farmer? How to define
just a
it?
definition of farmer. Like, are we including meat marketing and sales, or is it I noticed the group, what I'm looking at, I think are largely in horticulture, vegetables and that. But would this include the other forms of agriculture in the community?
Yeah, we definitely want to be as inclusive as possible. It is a bigger issue of how do you define a farmer, and that goes into, you can have many different ways of defining it. Farm status is not necessarily a clear line of whether you're a farmer or not. So I think if it came down to having to determine who is or isn't, that could be a sort of a system or a matrix that we'd have to think about. But mostly it's a small enough community that farmers know who the farmers are and can kind of have a pretty good sense of who represents which different sectors and how to make sure as many voices are there as possible.
Great, thanks very much. I think that's all my questions, and I much appreciate what you're up to. I think it sounds terrific.
Great. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, and thank you to the three of you for stepping forward to represent agriculture in our community. For those who don't know, I am the council liaison for the Agriculture Committee, and there was a great deal of work done on the agricultural plan from last term and then forward to this term, where it was adopted and accepted by our council. And throughout the plan, there are action items in the last part of it, of different things to do in long-term, short-term, medium-term, and who would take the lead on that. And at a very quick glance, it's not hard to see Metchosin farmers comes up quite often. My colleagues have all brought very good points here, things that I've been making notes about since this has come up. When this came up at the Ag Committee, well, some time ago, actually, when I was first appointed, this is one of the things I was thinking is, a farmers alliance, because now in my fourth year here, after applying for 3 grants and not successfully getting anything for a coordinator, which we got really fixed on, or other things, it is very difficult for an Ag Committee to do that. But as a councillor, I can go through staff to do a certain amount of that. With an alliance, they can go and they can do that themselves for projects they want to do or promotional things, whatever. However, historically, the Agricultural Committee has also done varieties of farm forms over the last 20 or so years. They've been going since 2008, so quite a long time, with a very minimal budget, a lot of it volunteer work. So there is still a purpose for the Ag Committee on a lot of different things that they do, and I appreciate what's been shared this evening with the Alliance and things they could do. So possibly marrying the two would help. The members of the Ag Committee will shift, and so the Alliance, I imagine, eventually would probably shift as well, being that both are volunteers, so to speak. The one thing
Councillor Johnson,
yes.
I gotta ask one thing. We're gonna get a chance to talk about this in a bit, but do you have a question?
Yeah, I do, and it was already brought up a little bit here from council members, is the reporting back to the Ag Committee. so that then council gets the information. I think that is quite key for us to consider, considering the document is the districts, and the farmers are a significant part of our community that brought this document together. That was all it was more of a statement. And maybe it's a question or something to think about. Thanks.
Great. I have two questions I wanted to ask. First of all, I really like the sound of this and the concept of having it arm's length from local government, I think, is credible. The farming that goes on, to my understanding, is done by individuals, private individuals, and the incentive to grow and work in that capacity, I think, comes from private initiatives. So I think that's where much of the energy is probably going to come from in terms of advancing on the plan. But with that, around the alliance, will you be applying for nonprofit staff? So maybe that will open up opportunities for grants further.
Yes, definitely.
Great.
And we have already drafted just a set of bylaws, basic bylaws to be able to, and a constitution to be able to apply for a nonprofit status.
Okay.
And then in terms of the reporting mechanism, Metchosin's got so many other great organizations that do a lot of important work. If there's any suggestions of how that's being done with other groups, whether there's like a yearly, bi-yearly sort of report back procedure, we'd be interested in knowing what would be a good recommendation for it, for sure.
Okay, great. So second question is, what are you looking for from council in terms of the Agricultural Alliance?
We're really just looking to collaborate, provide an update, and then get any input, anything, guidance that we can get from you on how to make this successful and work well together. So that's really just wanting to let you know where we're at and hear what we can learn from you guys.
Okay, so you're going for it whether we like it or not.
Yeah, we sort of decided that we're not seeking your approval because a nonprofit doesn't need approval from council to be created. So that was sort of our thinking. We'd love to have you on board, but
okay,
we don't need your permission.
Good to hear, Mr. Fletcher. Thank you. Okay, Mayor Little.
Yeah, just one other question, Alex. If you remember back when we were talking about the agricultural plan, the Ministry of Agriculture representatives were actually the ones that told us to look to Salt Spring Island for their agricultural plan and how they structured it. And I'm just wondering, have you reached out to members of the Alliance on Salt Spring to see how it's going, how they structured their alliance, what worked, what didn't, their terms of reference, their membership? Have you reached out to them? Because they're probably, like their plan, a wealth of information for you. And secondly, I like the idea of the non-for-profit because then you can apply for grants, even though we're in this climate of there not being no grants from the feds or the province. You might get lucky, but you also might, as a non-profit, you might be able to receive some donations from the community. I mean, there's a huge support for farmers in Metchosin, and maybe those people that are not lucky enough to live on farmable land may want to contribute as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all these great questions. We haven't really directly contacted the Alliance in Salt Spring Island, but I've thought about it. It'd be a great opportunity to learn more from them. They have a really good website that's provided a lot of information and links to the reports they've been able to do with funding and where they've gotten funding from and their membership structure. And yeah, even as an example, just since we've started talking about this, we've already received a sort of promise of funds from a private individual to support this initiative. So I think there's more of that out there that we'll be able to tap into for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, we are now going to move on to public participation. And I just ask that you, as always, keep your remarks respectful to council staff and the visitors in the gallery. And one thing I would always ask, as we always do, is no applaud or signs of exuberance. It just helps everyone feel that they can approach the mic and express their views on an even keel basis. So everyone has 4 minutes when they approach the mic, and I would ask you to state your name and your street number. So, Ms. Boyd, just go ahead.
Sorry, good evening, Carol Voigt, Gemini Drive. I'd like to address item 7B, the CAO's report. Please vote for option 3, that the Committee of the Whole refer the report back to staff for further information. Rather than proceeding with a deeply flawed project management process where crucial first steps have been neglected, it would be more appropriate to shelve what has been done and begin again. We need a project restart that is based on fiscal realism and a clear delineation between needs and wants. Absent to date in Metchosin's Firehall replacement project are important parameters such as a needs assessment, which is distinct from wants, a benchmarking exercise where comparable projects are researched and considered, and most alarmingly, setting an appropriate budget. I was astounded to learn from both a JDA employee and one of our councillors that the district proceeded with the request for JDA to provide a cost estimate on the project without the district having defined a budget or a maximum cost based on a realistic assessment of our community's ability to pay. It is paramount to understand that while we need to provide a reliable, safe, functional facility for our firefighters, we also need to remember that 80% of our call-outs are not even fire-related. Metchosin doesn't need a state-of-the-art facility. We also don't need to set a benchmark for rural emergency services infrastructure or to serve as a regional training hub. Rather, we need an appropriately sized fire hall to serve our small rural community of just over 5,000 residents with thoughtful consideration of the ability of our 1,826 taxpayers to cover the cost. We don't need to duplicate existing services. We already have an emergency operations center. We have classrooms in the old Metchosin School for training. We have an expensive community kitchen that's hardly ever used. And we have 3 services that serve as hubs. We have the school, we have the community hall, and we have the community house. We don't need and can't afford another community hub. I wrote to you in August of 2025 saying I'd like to see a more rigorous approach taken in researching options for what is likely to be the single most significant expense the district has undertaken. I have seen no evidence of further research. As suggested in August, I would like to reiterate that it may be more manageable for our community to consider replacing the 1950s administration building and upgrading rather than replacing the 1996 apparatus bays, and treating these as 2 separate sequential projects. The Metchosin School could be used for fire hall administration while the new structure was built on the existing site. Once the administration portion was complete, then we could consider the actual needs for a seismic upgrade to the 30-year-old apparatus bays. Still unaddressed in the current fire hall replacement plan and absent from the JDA cost estimate are significant expenses that we will have to incur if we proceed with the currently proposed preferred option. Please refer to my letter for details. Costs for the current project will expand far beyond the almost 22 million cost estimate. Added to this cost could be cost overruns exceeding 40%, which are unfortunately common in public infrastructure civil engineering projects in Canada. Once again, I urge you to vote for option 3. It would be reckless to proceed with the currently conceived fire hall project. Let's start again with a more structured, thoroughly researched project management plan that addresses our actual needs rather than unconstrained aspirations. Thank you.
Yeah, please proceed.
Hello, Eric White, Metchosin Road. I'd like to talk to you guys about the Good Neighbors bylaw. I don't think it's a very good idea. I think it's going to cost the municipality lots of money because as far as I read it, lots of it doesn't apply, or the Canadian Charter is going to veto it real fast. Section 52 of the Charter says any law that is inconsistent with the charter will be of no force or effect. And so for the noise complaints, you're going to get someone who's got the money to fight back when you guys say, oh, we heard you yipping and yelling and screaming in your backyard and having a good time. And they'll take you to court and be like, this is the case law. The strip club in Montreal versus the city of Montreal, where the club played their music loud out the doors, and the court ruled that it was freedom of expression to promote their business that way. So, I mean, if that one got passed as a charter violation, then that one might come back to bite us. And like Steve Gray was saying, or Councillor Gray was saying, with the invasive plants, like the whole thing, it really actually bugs me because it's a poor person penalty. A lot of it comes down to, if you can't afford to remove the invasives, we're going to do it for you and bill you later. If you have a mess in your property, we're going to come and take it away because the neighbor doesn't like it, and we're going to bill you later. If you can afford to clean up the mess, if you can afford to get rid of the plants, if you can afford to do these things, then usually they'll get taken care of. So those penalties are actually the ones that make me feel. The other one about the not applying to the charter is going to make me feel in my wallet, or if everyone's going to feel it in their wallet when we get sued. So there's that. That's the Good Neighbors bylaw. I'd also like you to reconsider the fire chief getting a truck. I think that's a crucial tool for a fire chief. It is when he gets a call at 1 a.m., there's a 5-alarm blaze, and he has to hop in a vehicle. He needs to hop in the truck that has his tools and his antennas and his radios and go there to Duke Road, and not to the Firehall first and then pick up a vehicle and drive to Duke Road. It's a tool for the guy who knows how to use the tools the best. And when you ask what's he doing with it, he's going to respond to the emergencies. He's not going to go on vacation. He's not going to tootle around town. He'll take his personal car for that. It's a tool to make sure he can be ready for us. And I really think it's something he needs. So please reconsider giving him the tools he needs for the job. And while I have the time about the fire hall, remember that every day that goes by is, last estimate was $2,793 in interest a day. So by the time we get to the next election, which is 200 days away, we will be adding another $600,000, whether we like it or not, to whatever we choose. So speed is of the essence, and we need to make sure this fire hall lasts for at least 50 years, whether it's because we don't want to be doing this again for a long, long time. So please consider urgency and effectiveness, and please, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Morgan Yates. I live on Gemini Drive, and I'm speaking to you tonight not only as a Metchosin resident and taxpayer, but as a retired professional engineer and somebody with a couple of decades experience in major project management. A March 9th report authored by our CAO proposes a governance model in terms of reference for the fire hall replacement project. Generally, these are good things. However, because this project is still based on the $22 million option identified by Vancouver-based Johnson Davidson Architecture and Planning, advancing a governance model in terms of reference at this time would not be optimum use of limited human and financial resources. Why? Because we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. JDA's preferred option is a non-starter for a small community. We need a project reset. We need, and I am asking Council to rigorously reassess our actual project needs and to bring forward an amended project scope and cost estimate. An early step in reassessment by Council would be to examine recent and similar projects undertaken or underway elsewhere in our region at far lower cost. Consider, for example, the $6.1 million fire hall project presently underway in Comox that will serve a population of 15,000. The project planning and management methods, the design and construction contractors, and other key inputs and outcomes from similar regional projects could and should inform an amended project design and scope for Metchosin. In turn, this would lead to a shared understanding by council, by administration, and by local taxpayers that Metchosin's Firehall requirements could be met without compromising our capacity to fund other community priorities. Rather than being divided, we'd be united. Several weeks ago, the APRM informed its membership of a new information resource website, www.firehallfacts.ca. I recently reviewed the website and I believe that it contains information relevant to a project reset. I thus recommend that the website also be reviewed by fellow taxpayers, by council, and by staff. Finally, regarding terms of reference for a future project task force, two considerations seem paramount. Number one, qualifications. The task force needs to include persons with meaningful skill and experience in areas like project management, civil engineering, financial analysis, and/or extensive past employment as a firefighter. Number two, conflict avoidance. Best efforts should be made to avoid real or perceived conflicts of interest. For example, we need to avoid enlisting task force members who may have a financial interest in the subsequent Firehall construction. To be clear, while we would certainly want local contractors to bid on the ultimate project, we also need to avoid any perception that potential foxes may have a role in designing the henhouse. Thank you.
Sherry Rourke, Rocky Point Road. I want to begin by expressing my support for council moving forward with revising the terms of reference and engaging a project manager to help guide the next phase of this project. As the chair of the Firehall Steering Committee previously noted, a firehall cannot be built by committee alone, and staff and council require further support. The feasibility study was the first step in a much longer process. The work that follows is where scope is refined, needs are examined in greater detail, and options are adjusted to align with what the community can realistically support. While the grant application required a feasibility study, those documents do not represent the final plans or final costs. They are early estimates tied to a preliminary concept. The next phase is where real work happens, reviewing space requirements, identifying where scope can be adjusted, and ensuring that the final project reflects both the needs and financial realities of our community. At this point, we simply don't know the cost of a final solution because the work has not yet been completed. Continuing the process and engaging experienced professionals is how we get those answers. Members of council have spoken about the importance of getting this right. Councillors Shore-Sooke and Gray have raised the need to revise the terms of reference and engaging an independent project manager. Councillor Donaldson, as finance chair, has raised important questions about financial viability, and Mayor Little has previously noted that the outcome of the grant application will play a significant role in how this project proceeds, and that we may need to pivot or construct in stages depending on the outcome of the grant we recently applied for. The next step is to do the work required in order to answer these questions, determining what we truly need and what we can realistically afford. The only way to do that is by continuing the process and developing more detailed plans and specifications. Having industry professionals involved on your task force provides valuable insight into which decisions help control costs and which ones may unnecessarily increase them. For anybody in this room that doesn't know, you have professionals sitting on that committee in that capacity. You have project managers, you have builders, you have structural engineers, amongst other professionals. I also want to briefly address suggestions that individuals serving on the committee are involved for financial gain. A conflict of interest exists only when someone stands to benefit financially from a decision, and it has been repeatedly clarified that this is not the case. What is true is that hundreds of hours of professional time have been volunteered to help the district navigate a complex project. Like many advisory committees, we rely on residents with professional expertise to support informed decision-making. Claims suggesting otherwise are not only untrue, they otherwise discourage the volunteers in our community, which we depend on, and ultimately do a disservice to our community. We already see this with the loss of volunteers on advisory select committees, as well as within our community volunteer groups. Metchosin is not alone in facing this challenge. Many communities across BC are dealing with aging fire halls that no longer meet modern safety standards or operational needs. Delaying the discussion will not solve your problem. Construction costs continue to rise each year, and continued delays will ultimately cost taxpayers more. That's
You
good.
have to wrap it up. Okay, thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Gary Fletcher, 4645 William Head Road. I'm here largely to commend Council for having on the agenda tonight the issue about the Biodiversity and Natural Areas Asset Plan. I think it's a real tribute to this community to put those kind of values at the forefront. The part of the biodiversity plan that I was most interested in as a member and chair of the Metchosin Environmental Advisory Select Committee was the part about the economic benefits associated with natural capital and ecosystem services. I think this is something we've taken for granted too long, and something that gets put on the back burner when a crisis happens. For instance, now with politics interfering with our concerns about oil transport across Canada, for instance, we tend to forget some of the environmental aspects and some of the irreversible problems that we can create by ignoring those. So I'd just like to commend you for dealing with this. By the way, if anyone is interested in furthering their information about it, the ecosystem services concept was developed back in the 1960s and 70s. And it came to a head in 1997 when Robert Costanza published in Nature magazine a seminal article on the value of the global ecosystem services. At that time, economists estimated that it was about $33 trillion, which was at that time larger than the GDP of all the nations in the world. And yet it's something that's always considered not as important as GDP and the economic advantages that you get from development. So I'd like to recommend that you check on those kind of references, because there is history to it, and it's been very important in making us realize that economic gain is not the only thing that's good for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Anyone else for public participation? So, Mr. K. Klaus, we'll let Ms. Fridge go because she stood up first, but then you're next. So.
Good evening, Ellen Frisch, Perry Crossroad. I had a lot of things I wanted to talk to tonight, but I'm going to reduce it to a couple of things. The 2026 priorities list. I read it with a view of a lens of we're spending and we're taking in revenue, but I didn't see many line items for the revenue side of things. And I think the continuous challenge that we've have that came forward in our finance plan of January is that our revenues don't meet our expenditures. We had a local group that I am a member of, reach out concerned with an over 9% increase in taxes, but that's forecast. I think I read somewhere up to 100% by 2030 something. So in my view, we need to look at that side of it. I'd be interested in the math of what the last speaker was just talking about in terms of the financial benefits accorded with environmental protection in areas. So that's interesting. The Firehall. I am a project manager certified who spent many years on major projects. And where I'm seeing this needing to go is a hybrid of the options that are out there. There's a severe misunderstanding around the proposal that was submitted that it is 22 million when it's not. It was a concept with the intent to pivot. And that intent to pivot is just fundamentally misunderstood. Secondly, there are experts that were on the committee, and I sat in on those, in particular the structural engineer, who I personally have done a lot of projects with, was very clear about the significant changes to the BC Building Code with respect to seismic and structural engineering. And we have some major issues that really prevent a post-modification to our existing bays. So we've got some big issues there. We've had professional input. I would like to see us hire a project manager. I would like to see that project manager brought in and do a bit of a dive on what's been done to date. What are the gaps? Are there any gaps? How can we revisit some of those gaps and address the concerns that we're still hearing? One of the things that I observed was I didn't see in my eye a deep needs analysis. We had a firm from Vancouver that brought a lot of experience and brought concepts to the table from which they built the concept, but it didn't refine down into some of the detailed needs. And it also didn't demonstrate where there were overlapped uses of certain spaces. So with that, I would look at whether there was an additional way to look at those two options coming together, and do appreciate the work of all the volunteers who've contributed to that plan so far. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Cryer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Klaus Cryer, Liberty Drive. I'm also a retired engineer and manager, and during my career as a manager, I've managed a lot of different groups, from small groups of a dozen people to 700. So I've seen a lot of org charts and worked with a lot of teams, and what I see in the report in terms of the org chart is something that I really struggle to understand and see how it works. It has diverse reporting lines, and there is a mixture of tasks allocated to teams without a clear indication. I see that as a bit of a problem. I also note that a PM is to be employed, but the documents quite clearly state that the PM would be restricted to an assisting and supporting roles. I don't think that's how a PM works, and that's how other people would understand a PM to work. A project manager normally runs with the projects and drives it from the front. So if you want to get the project done, you need to appoint somebody and say, the buck stops here, you need to get that done. With a bunch of teams, you most likely have a situation where the buck gets passed. Then there is the technical working group that is referred to, and the wording there says, directed by the CAO and supported by the PM. Yeah, I would submit that should be the other way around, that the PM runs the show and CAO supports. And that's a theme that runs through this report. And I was thinking it might actually be a simple matter of exchanging the PM and the CAO's roles, so that the PM can drive the project and the CAO advises to ensure that municipal policy and procedures are adhered to. Now, one of the admissions, and maybe why a PM might be premature, is that the report doesn't address the role of the owner's engineer. The person that leads, that probes, that identifies, investigates options and opportunities to move this project forward and brings solutions to council. More importantly, that person vets reports, estimates to ensure that they are correct and relevant to the project. I see this as a critical part. Council is in an envious position of having accountability to make these decisions. And you can only make good decisions if you have good information. I'd like to just reflect for a moment at the end here on the supplemental agenda and all the letters that have been written in. I think these people have really put their mind to the matter and written some very good letters and made some very good points. I really urge you to read these and think about them. And I would certainly add my voice to the content of those letters and say, well, maybe it is time to revisit some items, think about them again, and do a little bit of a reset before this project moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt.
I barrel away. Thanks, Patty. VLN Mitchell, Whitty Beach Road, Metchosin. I just want to comment on, I think we've had some great comments tonight about the Firehall. And I think actually every single person who's spoken on this issue has called for a project reset. And I think that's just wise. I'm a little worried that when we get sidetracked into governance and project managers, which are really important, that we actually are complicating things when we haven't really decided on what it is that we're actually trying to do here. Form follows function is just as true. I know it comes out of the building world and architectural world, but it's absolutely true for organizational design too. And the previous speaker, I think, spoke very eloquently about some of the shortcomings and pitfalls in what's proposed that I think we should probably consider. But I think there have been some really great points made of that we do need a reset. We need to really separate out the needs from the wants. They're quite different. We need to have a serious budget discussion of what it is that we can afford and do a low, medium, high, get back to our options and trade-offs. It's not to say that everything that was done to date is thrown out, no. But what we have at the moment is really a largely unrealistic project that I think was thrown together to get a grant. As a former grant deliverer, I can say that nothing would drive me more nuts and would actually set me off on the wrong foot than people who set up air balloons just to see what the water is. The most appropriate is actually to come in with some really realistic, hard, grounded assessments of what you need, what you want, what you would do for a low budget, a medium budget, a high budget, very serious discussion of trade-offs and options. And it's the right thing to ask all the questions. I think everyone here is asking a lot of really good questions. I think we should welcome that. I don't envy your job as a council. I think it's really tough. This is an important decision. We need to do this Firehall, but we also need to think about what it is that we can do and afford and take full advantage of everyone around. So once again, I really stand on, I think you've got some excellent letters in the pinks and others, and would just like to underscore those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell.
Council, my name's Charlie Rivers on Leafield Road. My wife and I are new to the community for about 4.5 years now. My background, 25-year career firefighter with one of the other municipalities, 9 years as a full-time captain. From what I've kind of seen, the community's has been quick to embrace us with our fast friends with local neighbors. Everyone's very passionate about this community. So I think I can see, like when we came to the open house with regards to the fire hall, everyone's extremely passionate about it, and immediately felt people had already taken sides with the type of project they wanted to move forward with, versus feeling being open to input to make the best decision for the community. Because of being passionate about the community, people had seemed to already take sides before I think they had really had all the information that they had. The general consensus being a reset, I think is a great idea. I was quite surprised at the open house with seeing certain individuals that seem to be steering the project, who in my opinion shouldn't actually maybe have input into the type of building that they want versus providing council with the needs that they require. This department has a high turnover rate, being that it's volunteer. A large core part of the people that move through the program are working on getting their certifications so they can springboard into possibly a full-time career. So relying on firefighters wanting a particular building versus what the council or the community needs, I think are very two different things, given that the hall actually has a very high turnover rate of personnel. So wanting a building that will attract people and have them work here, I think is a great idea. But at the end of the day, the council has to be responsible to the community and provide the building that it needs versus what people may want, even though they're only here for a short time. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rivers.
Good evening, Kiara Kahakawila, Perry Crossroad. I knew I was going to speak tonight, but I wasn't sure what I was going to speak. Well, I knew I was going to speak to, but how I was going to present this. So the real test will be whether or not I can read my own writing. So you've had several letters and speakers presented to you tonight that have made significant recommendations and proposed relevant points to be considered. I'd like to speak about leadership, community leadership, your leadership. You have the perfect opportunity to take pause and do the reset, as has been talked about, and look at this project of replacing a needed, at a minimum, administration building and options for addressing the apparatus bay. On the March 9th report, it's been stated by the CAO that we have $6.7 million in secured reserves for this project, between a gift from the province and secured funds left to this council from previous councils. You have a $7 million grant in the wings. This project will not be completed before your term is completed. Your leadership needs to set this community up for success in the future. A future that includes a new fire hall that meets our needs and protects our financial stability for a community that has a small but mighty tax base. We need a fire hall that serves a modest population and not one that anticipates development to pay for a fire hall that is not needed and actually exceeds our needs. I would ask you to please reconsider moving forward with a project manager at this time, and to go back to the basics, do a reset, look at the options that are there, and present as a collaborative council working together, present options that can be considered by this community, and then move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kahakawila.
Patty Whitehouse, Rocky Point Road. And I just want to express my appreciation for the very thoughtful comments of everybody who spoke tonight. We've had some memorable rants at this mic, but not tonight. Tonight, everybody was thoughtful, concerned, and provided constructive feedback. So thank you all.
Thanks, Ms. Whitehouse. Okay, well, seeing no more, I am going to last call for public participation. Okay, seeing no more, we're going to move on with the agenda. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Okay. So, Council, we are now going to go back to Ms. Andrew and Ms. Wan and talk about, or sorry, not go back, we're going to now talk about the Village Initiative. And Again, the ask before us tonight to consider, if we choose to do so, is to consider contributing funds toward the regional coordinator for the Municipal Leaders Advisory Team. And this, as I understand it, is a broad social services focus for all of the West Shore, and playing, as just as the name would state, a coordinating function. And so the ask, I think it's on page 81, is, I believe it's a 3-year commitment for $4,800. And we'll open the floor. Councillor Green.
Yeah, I don't see that in the agenda, but rather correspondence. So I wonder, I don't know that we need to make a decision this evening about finances.
Yeah.
It was more an introduction to the idea.
Sure.
And I might start off by asking Mayor Little. Mayor, I gather you've been representing us at this group, and I wonder, it says here Municipal Leaders Advisory Team. So is it municipal leaders advising somebody, or is it the municipal leaders being advised by somebody? I wasn't clear of that.
Yeah, through the chair, it was the municipal leaders being advised of the problems with children, youth, and families, and trying to come up with solutions in a coordinated regional way. And it was set up by the people that you saw earlier this evening, and was hosted by the City of Colwood. It was invited, all the mayors were invited to attend from the West Shore and the Wanda-Fuka area.
Thanks, that's good to know. And then has it been going on for a while, or is it brand new?
Probably, oh gosh, Cindy would have to remind me, it's at least 18 months or so.
Mayor Little.
Yeah, thank you. So I am in favor of this because at the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee, where I'm chair, that is a delegated CRD commission, we hear from service providers throughout the region, throughout Victoria, on the Sandwich Peninsula, and on the West Shore, how youth and families are falling through the cracks. And the primary purpose of the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice, we're not the boots on the ground. We support the service providers, and we advocate for youth and families that are coming in contact or on the path to coming in contact with the justice system. And so we know from data that has been presented, and Dr. Charles Worth, our representative for children and youth, just presented at the Victoria Family Court, that many of the statistics regarding youth mental health, their disconnectedness to each other and to community, and their overall well-being has suffered of late. And so we need to do something, but it allows these youth and families that are falling through the crack, it allows other people that may have nefarious interests, such as pimps or people that are interested in trafficking young people. It allows them the opportunity when these kids are not connected. So I think it would be good for us to belong in a formalized way to the Village Initiative. And what we found at the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice, and also at the Mobile Youth Services Team, is that children and youth, they don't respect boundaries and districts and municipalities. They just go amongst them all. And so kids from Metchosin and Shore-Sooke in the Wanda-Fuka area are in Langford a lot, and in downtown Victoria a lot. And many of the youth from the peninsula end up congregating downtown. And so I think this would be a strong body to represent the youth and families in the region, and it would formalize the collaborations and enhance the collaborations and Cindy has been doing this off the side of her desk on a volunteer basis, but she and others have brought it to a point where it should be more formalized with a coordinator. Thank you.
Any other comments, Councillor Green?
Well, just following up through the chair. So what type of collaboration is Metchosin involved in the moment for the youth advisory team?
In terms of the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice, well, the Metchosin is involved because I'm the chair, and I'm the chair of that committee. So I have reported back to council on the activities of the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice. The West Shore Parks and Recreation has developed a program for youth. We are a member of that. Councillor Donaldson can speak more to that, where a lot of kids have been attracted to the youth programs at the West Shore. They provide pizza, a place to connect, and a place for them to be other than on the streets or with other people that may not have their best interests at heart.
Thanks. I think that's one thing that we are involved in is West Shore Parks and Rec in terms of the kinds of initiatives that I read about in the document here and heard about this evening. The other thing that I can think of, and our CEO asked about the issue of are you looking for space, and the documents describe a need for space for youth to gather. And I understand we've offered the old school building to West Shore Parks and Rec, at least in terms of developing ideas and what might fit out here. But I wasn't sure who in our community is doing youth programming at the moment who could hook up. In other words, the notion is to coordinate activities here. And I wasn't just sure who the receptors were in Metchosin for the collaboration to occur with beyond council. It's just that we're such a small community, we really don't spend money like other districts do on social services in the same way, except through our grant and aid program. So we have the youth parliament, we supported the youth parliament, that's a couple of young people to be involved that way. But I'm interested in what we might bring to the table to offer other districts and our kids, and then what they might be looking to us for, like in concrete terms. And that's maybe a question that we could ask Cindy as well.
Ms. Andrew, would you care to answer that at all?
Well, sure, I will to the best of my ability, and thank you for flagging that. In fact, the issue of space or the articulation in particular of young people, including at least 10 who were participants 2 years ago now when we invited youth in to do a deep dive in terms of what's called the Adolescent Health Survey results. This is their data. This is young people telling us, here's what's going on. Here's what we need to help support our well-being, and access to safe spaces to go, to hang out, to be able to connect discreetly with service providers, et cetera, was a big piece of that. In terms of services and what's available, I would say, just because there is, organizations that may not necessarily have an address located in Metchosin proper, they're certainly serving Metchosin children, youth, and families. A Shore-Sooke Family Resource Society, which may sound a bit like a misnomer, supports and services families from Metchosin and across the region. Ditto Pacific Center Family Service Association, your public health programming for young moms. I could go on with Boys and Girls Club, now called BGC, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. There are many who are providing services to young people in your community. Is that kind of what you were looking for, or feel free for a follow-up if I've missed the mark at this hour? I may have.
That's through the chair. No, that's great. I was thinking about what the district provides itself, and perhaps your answer is good for that too. Thank you.
Councillor Donaldson.
Oh, thank you. Just on referencing what the mayor has mentioned, Last year, West Shore Parks and Rec member municipalities invested for this year already over $100,000 into the program called The Shore, which is a drop-in program where youth have a lot of different activities that they can do. This will be either down at the West Shore Parks and Recreation Center or at the Centennial Park building. There will be a new spot because that one is going to be replaced with another building, but the program is highly popular. We do have we have collaborated with RCMP to be involved with different programs in that regard. We have youth mentors and staff. It sounds like it's a really exciting place to be. So we're already investing in that, not to say that this isn't a good investment either, although we don't have this earmarked in our budget at this time. And we are in a fiscal restraint situation with the other big topic this evening, which is the Firehall. So those are just some things that we all need to consider, but certainly we are already investing, so I'm not sure if we're how much more overlap we would be putting our finances in, providing space or people or whatever. I would need to learn a little bit more about that, but I did want to concur with the mayor was saying of our previous investment.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor Gray asked what we're doing, and I don't think the district itself really has direction to deal or to provide services for youth and family, but certainly a number of organizations in Metchosin 4-H, Pearson College, and they're also not only servicing the students at the college, but they're interested in bringing other students, other youth from Metchosin to meet the students of the college and to play basketball or volleyball or whatever to foster community. Of course, there's the Scouts and the Guides. Some of the organizations are located in Colwood, but they definitely have youth from Metchosin. Of course, there's the Pacific Family Services where the MIST team is located, as well as the RCMP with their newly integrated response team for youth. And we've also got the Boys and Girls Club, which I understand they're still doing some programming there, as well as the YWCA and the YMCA. One of the strengths of this organization is it's preventative, and it's very hard to quantify prevention, but I've also sit on the Citizens Action Committee at William Head Institution, and we literally we as in the Canadian taxpayers, we literally spend hundreds of millions of dollars on reintegrating citizens that have offended back into the population. And you can't help when you attend that committee and speak to some of the inmates, you can't help but think that had resources being put up earlier and programs for children to belong to, maybe they may not have ended up in the prison situation and having taxpayers pay for their reintegration back into society. So like I said, this is a program based on prevention, and prevention is very hard to quantify in terms of its effect. But if you can just take those two scenarios of the millions of dollars that we spend at the other end when people are not supported, when children and family are not supported, what they're asking for is $4,800, which is not a lot. But of course, we won't be able to quantify that. I admit that it's very difficult to quantify. But the metrics that they have are from youth and family in our region. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Sure, thank you. I was asking about the municipal, like our role as compared to the role of the various groups in the community. because when I look at the coordinator's role, it's about monitoring existing and proposed municipal policies, ongoing financial support, and coordinating staff, that's our staff across municipalities, I expect. So I was thinking that's kind of focused on what's the district providing as compared to what's going on in the community. The arguments for the work being done, of course, are very strong. I was just trying to figure out where do we fit as a small community without providing much in the way of these kinds of services or none of them. I had a suggestion too for the chair, which was that we might forward this request for finance to the finance committee so we pick it up in our budget discussions as a way to fit in with everything else that we have going on.
Sure, go ahead and I'll speak up.
Yeah, I think we should refer this not only to the Finance Committee, but to our Healthy Communities Committee, because they would be able to comment on this and provide us also with some direction. And regarding what is our role, well, from the community charter, we know that we have to provide good governance to the community, and we provide services and laws and other matters for community benefits, provide stewardship of public funds in trust for our community. But more importantly for this discussion, and in answer to your question, Councillor Gray, we're supposed to foster economic, social, and environmental well-being of the community. And in other places in the community charter, it does talk about the health, the safety, and the protection of the community. And the community also involves youth and family.
Chair, just to respond, I recognize that my question was really into what are we doing today on this, and I think it's your involvement in the Youth and Family Court probably is our biggest involvement in the issue, and the involvement of Councillor Donaldson at West Shore Parks and Rec. Of course, we're involved with the police, all of us, and other things like that. But in terms of programming, we don't have much on the ground now, and I think what as you're talking about is making me think about, well, what could we do? Where are the opportunities? But that'll be a discussion for another day, I expect.
So I think we should move along here. I hear an idea of moving this toward our Finance Committee for further consideration, and also Healthy Communities. Could I have a motion to do that? Great.
I'll second that.
Okay. It's moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any further discussion? Great. I will now call the question. All in favor? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Ms. Andrew and Ms. Dr. Wan, thank you very much for being with us. We will pick this up again. Thank you so much for giving us background, and please keep us posted on how your engagement goes with other municipalities as well.
Yes, we will absolutely. Thank you again for your time. And so others have done exactly as you've just done, which is we're going to direct this into our, with the intention of budget planning, another item for consideration. So, and I know that you know how to reach me, so I welcome any additional questions you might have as your deliberations continue. Okay. Thank you again for your time, and thank you, Dr. Wan, for joining me here this evening as well.
Great. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is to go back and talk about the Metchosin Agricultural Alliance. I, just in the interest of being effective with our time and focus, I'm not really sure what there is to talk about. The members of the Alliance, it is a private initiative and they're free to move ahead with it as they want to. I take the point, though, they're looking for ways to collaborate, and that's great. I suspect that there will be opportunities that come up and there'll be, more direct discussions about specific initiatives. But after that, any further comments?
I just have one comment or one question, I guess, of Committee of the Whole. So at our next meeting, we'll be revising the terms of reference so that it actually says implementing ag plan, because that is the initiative of the advisory committee. So this was one of the questions I had asked the farmers when they brought this forward, that could any other growers in the community that were agriculture related growers. I just call them growers because it covers off just about everybody that's going to do something with food, I think. If they too could also, if they saw something that was of interest in a plan, could initiate some sort of implementation as well. And as I go through it, I think I almost found my answer was that. But I would want to encourage people to come to the Ag Committee as well, to be able to filter that through up to council. There's no harm in not. I think that the community stakeholders that are already doing some kind of growing are in some manner implementing parts of the plan. The Metchosin Agricultural Alliance is a new organized body. All of them are on the Ag Committee at this point in time, so it would be a good role model to follow suit.
I can move receipt of the report.
Great. Move receipt. Second by Councillor Donaldson.
And then I wanted to say that I enjoyed the laughter about the idea of the group will do whatever they like. Of course, they're setting up a society, which sounds terrific, and I think it's a really encouraging development, as I said earlier. As to the question of reporting to us, again, well, that can be something that they can decide, but I can imagine as they're able and we're able to move items along in the agricultural plan, it'd be great to get news of things that are happening, and also to for ourselves to be ready to support when we can. And so that's how I see communication happening. But really appreciate the effort of the gang.
Yeah, thank you. And to the chair, I also appreciate the comments from the three individuals that came forward tonight. And I like the idea that it's farmer-centric, because when you have people that with vested interest, that's when you see development. I imagine that they will keep in contact with us. Many of them are on the Metchosin Agriculture Advisory Select Committee, but they also might want letters of support for grants that they apply for, or other advocacy letters, which of course we would be welcome to entertain here. And I wish them much success and encourage them to reach out to the Salt Spring Island Alliance. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a seconder to move receipt and call the question. Great. Okay, so moving to the fun part of the agenda. So adoption of the minutes of the February 9th Committee of the Whole meeting. Any comments, or can I have a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Okay, seconded by Mayor Little. Any comments before I call the question? All in favor? Okay, that's passed. We have receipt of minutes from the Advisory Select Committee meetings. I'm wondering and hoping we can take them all together. January 20th PTask meeting, January 27th Healthy Communities, January 28th PTask, and February 17th PTask meeting minutes. So motion to receive
all of them.
Second, all of them, sure.
Yes.
Okay,
Is that a question?
Sure, Councillor.
Yeah, I was looking at the January 28 minutes of the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee.
Page number?
Page number 27 at the very bottom. And I just was wondering about the status of the Beckingham Trail. And I wondered, and maybe Councillor Shooke, you might know the answer, but is the trail not completed yet?
So what I understand with the trail is once the subdivision was complete, or shortly thereafter, there would be a right-of-way that was dedicated to Metchosin. So we would essentially own it. I believe it is 6 meters in length from the edge of the property, 6 meters to the north, I think. And that is where the trail would go. So I don't know the status of the trail, and that was the inquiry by PTask. We have walked it a number of times. There are some complexities near the end of it, and near the end of it is where we are hoping to go from Beckingham Road, connecting with the Galloping Goose. And so I won't put Mr. Payette on the spot right now, but that is something that PTask is going to want to see completed. So, Mr. Payette.
Oh, thanks through the chair. I believe it's road dedication.
Yeah.
on the trail. We've been working on phase one. I think maybe phase one is done. Then there's a phase two portion of the trail that's not completed. And then after phase two, there would have to be additional work to connect it to the Galloping Goose Trail. So there's a phased in approach, and over time it should all work out.
And I believe we had commitments from the developers to do the trail up to a certain point where the road allowance met the last segment to get to the Goose. So, and that would be district or volunteer time. So, yeah. Okay, with that, Councillor Johnson.
I just have one query on page 28, the mesh on district bridges on trails. This is something we, it was a discussion, I don't know if it was last term or the term before, but horse riders, equestrians are quite concerned about the type of mesh, not catching into hooves or shoes. And there was consultation back then with CRD Parks. You could probably talk to past coordinator Brent Donaldson, would be able to give you some information on why they did and didn't use that, i.e. on the Hillman Bridge was one of the ones.
Okay.
So there's different kinds of materials that they use on different ones. So
yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Okay.
And just a different question. It was on page 30, and that is the Parks and Trails meeting on February 17th. And there's a question there about, not a question, a statement. The Trail Stewardship Program has been authorized, and I guess proceeding. And I wonder if council members get a copy of the program description. I know you prepared one, Councillor Shooke, but it's probably changed. And I know there's volunteer issues that need to be sorted out, but I appreciate an update just where that's at. Maybe a copy of the program from the CO would be helpful.
For sure. It hasn't changed very, very little since it presented here. I think it was sometime last year. Thank you to Mr. Pyatt for moving along, and the volunteer has signed a waiver, which is a bit of an innovation for Metchosin to some degree. But yeah, we're moving on. So yeah, great. I will move that to you folks. So yeah, okay, great. I will call the question. I'm receiving all of these minutes. Okay, thanks, and that's passed. Okay. So next we have the Healthy Communities Report on the school. And more so the community input they received when they did their event in October of last year. And I wasn't at the event, I was away at that point, but report went very well, except for the heavy rain that happened, over 100 people there. I'm suspecting you were there, Councillor Johnson. This is a really great report with some excellent observations. To my mind, the summary would be that our facility has tons of unrealized potential. But the big question is, how do we meet and make the most of that unrealized potential? And that's going to take some time and resourcing as well, which ultimately comes down to budget and so often. But I will turn things over to the committee, and I have some observations myself, but what I'm interested to hear. And right now, the motion before us is just simply to receive the Healthy Communities Report. We can also point to where we can maybe look to another opportunity for action at some point as well. But with that.
I can make the motion to receive so we can got something to talk about.
Sure. Okay, Councillor Gray, motion to receive, and seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Okay, great. Sorry.
Yeah, so the committee not only did the open house, but there's a lot of considerations in here and some valuable information for us just to receive it. We might forget about it then. I recommend that we bring this back to another planning meeting. We may even need a special planning meeting to discuss this and some of the other community initiatives that might be going on at the time. And so I would, in their item number 11, they've got recommendations for council consideration. And I think on a night when we're not so pressed for time because we have some other weighted issues coming up. I'd like to talk about these, and perhaps we can get a presentation from the healthy communities as well, because they had some really great information here and some really good reflections on the naming and the identity of the building in particular, as well as the kitchen and the rental. Anyways, their suggestions and recommendations with I think are warrant a further discussion.
Great. Councillor Donaldson, and I'm going to speak after you.
Yeah, so in reading through this report, the one thing that I did want to say, or actually I'd like to commend, is our staff for reaching out to both West Shore Parks and Recreation with the programming that they're currently doing and programming they will be continuing to do. I had a master plan meeting this afternoon with the consultant and the board members, so there's more things that I'll be reporting on in probably next month. Getting back to youth, we will have youth programming there this summer, camp program plus possibly the roving park, so the fields will be used a bit more. So those sorts of things are being used. As we know, there's pickleball is a grand thing that's going on, and so there are lots of different things that are happening in the whole school now. The staff has been phenomenally busy getting tenants in and leases signed and bringing us up to a place where we're more marketable. So I'm pleased to say that this administration has done a fantastic job of filling in a lot of the gaps, and I think has answered quite a few of the things that are here already. So that's good to see, and yeah, always room for evolving.
Great. The one thing I will note is we just year over year there is an incremental increase in the use of the school and how the community is engaging with it, and we've seen a dramatic change now. Over the last 12 months. With the preschool being in there, and then also the Metchosin Health Collective as well, and the potential of a medical care center ideally in the coming months, but we'll see. So again, year over year, there is an evolution that is happening. What is, I'll just pull one quote out here. So why is one of the things that is asked in the document is why is a fully equipped performance ready facility not being booked for events while demand is so high? And to me, part of the answer is, again, the resourcing side of it. It would seem an easy thing to book an act or two, but on a sustained basis, and when everything else is happening in the school, if we really want to maximize the potential of that building, I'm thinking there's the potential of a coordinator that is going to be needed as we go. So again, that's a question for, it likely won't be this council, but it very well could be the next council as well. So, and again, I'm just thinking that again, to maximize what's there, I don't think we're going to be able to do that with the current resourcing. That just seems to be the experience today. We make incremental steps, gradual steps, but hitting the home run is going to maybe take something else. So I will note that Healthy Communities has proposed some names, and I really believe that we should be looking at a new name for the school. One of the things that I love the idea of having a very short and simple, a very simple name like the Metchosin Arts and Events Center, but as Healthy Communities is suggesting, nicknaming it the Met. That's so cool. The Met. Okay, there you go. There's my my pick. So one thing I will remind folks that we did a report, I think it was last year, and we did come up with a vision and mission statement that was included in the report. The vision was a thriving, inclusive gathering place where Metchosin residents and visitors connect, learn, grow, fostering a strong, resilient, and engaged community. So we do have a draft, both vision and mission statement that we can work through as well. So I do want to pass on to Healthy Communities a thank you. And we do, I think this is one of the most insightful documents that I've seen about the school. And as we continue planning, I think we need to bring it back. So, yeah.
And just when it comes back to planning, maybe we could ask staff to update us on the recommendations. I know that our staff are working on a number of these questions, and so it might be nice just to hear what they are thinking and how they might approach the different questions. So we got a good package to look at. And I do appreciate the work here. To me, I mean, I was there that day too, and I didn't realize there was, I wasn't aware at all that there was a gathering of input and opinions, but I can imagine people who were attracted to the open house hadn't been there in a while. And so comments like, holy crow, look what's here, makes sense given the event. But people who are using it all the time, of course, would have had a different take on it. But I like the idea of, as the committee is recommending, promoting the school for more opportunities. And thanks again, as you've expressed, to the committee chair and all the people who worked that day volunteering, and I guess also to the Community Growing Society who were there as well. So thanks.
Great, we have a motion to receive, and if there are no further comments, you're good. Okay, call the question. Great. Thanks again to Healthy Communities.
I'd like to further move that this be sent to the planning committee for further discussion, particularly with this document, but of the recommendations of council consideration, and to the chair of the planning committee to liaise with the chair of the Healthy Communities for presentation when we discuss this.
Sure, I can second that.
I can support that if we have a staff report with it that outlines what we're up to.
Sure.
I think, but wouldn't through the chair, wouldn't council know what we're working on already? What has come before council? The insurance, for instance, we know that we had a report on that. I think council members can remember those details, could they not, without a staff report?
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Johnson.
Some of the things that were cited there was about the equipment. So I would expect that staff would have some sort of inventory of what's working, what's not, where things are. The other thing was how to book, where to book. I know that there's things that there's waivers, there's insurance, all that sort of stuff, and some of that was cited there. So staff would have more of that information. I know people are asking me, I just reroute them to staff and who is that staff person, those sorts of things. So, and there is a website, there is a booking kind of calendar. So yeah, those sorts of things would be nice to know in one spot.
So my only hesitation to have a staff report is the range of topics to talk about at the school are broad. And I feel like then maybe the next time this comes up, we will be able to give direction to staff to focus in on something. So for example, what you're talking about, Councillor Donald's about rental of the rooms, use of the rooms. And again, the process around that is, to me, it's its own specific topic. How we market the building, parking, those are all broad topics. Again, signage as we've done. So I don't know if a staff report is needed for the next discussion, but maybe we can set priorities for more staff input.
I understand that, so thank you for that. I think it's just, I mean, you said yourself what's laid out in this here. It may be just Mr. Creek saying, pointing the finger, here's where you go, it's all listed on the website. Yeah. I don't know, because I don't book it, so, but maybe not. Maybe it doesn't need to be a full-on report, but yeah, feedback would be great.
Well, just a case in point would be the insurance. Mayor Little, I guess you're saying that's all settled and we all know what the answer is, but I sure don't know the answer to the questions raised by Healthy Communities. And so I'd like to hear from the staff about, well, what is it? What are we doing? And you guys are thinking that's not necessary. I'll vote against the motion if the staff aren't going to provide us some advice because they're managing it right now. And these are advice about management.
Sure. What I would just say is I think the topics are so vast sorry, not that fast, but there's a range of them. My bet is if we come to the next the next opportunity, we can hammer out some of these things. We can have staff here to respond to questions. So I don't know if a staff report is needed, but staff here answering our questions would be really good. So unless Councillor, yeah, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, the motion fails. That said, one way or the other, I feel like there's valuable information on this, and one way or another, I think it should come back for discussion. So, okay, we'll move on then. And the next item is the draft District of Metchosin Council 2026 priorities. So I'm going to ask Ms. Hanson to put maybe I'll just point to you, Ms. Hanson, when I want to flip. That's okay. I can't really see that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So on January 30th, Council met to discuss what our priorities are for the next few months. This isn't even for the year. It's up until the next, the end of term here. And so I'm going to go through, I think it's 9 different initiatives or broad categories that we're again setting ourselves as priorities. And if you are the lead on one of these, I will probably turn to you to explain where we're at with things. So basic one, support district staff in maintaining day-to-day operations in Metchosin, and you can see the 3 highlights that we have here. Again, day-to-day operations, ensuring the general workload originating from council is manageable and staffing levels are appropriate, set realistic expectations with volunteers, residents, community groups around service and responsiveness levels. So, and again, that middle bullet, I think is a really important one because there are some key initiatives that we want to get done this year. And there's always, seems with every meeting, there is always new stuff coming. So thank you. Develop a responsible operations and capital budget for 2026. That is underway right now. And 2 of the things we're looking at is, again, continue to maintain the district roads and replacement of the EOC roof. And those both have been discussed at previous meetings, so thanks. Support the continuing development of Metchosin School as a thriving community-focused multi-use facility. And again, confirm the overall vision of the school's role and purpose. I read out the visions, and again, there's also a mission statement that is quite a bit longer, but continue to work on a financial and management plan and continue to build appropriate revenue versus expenditures for the school. And in the plan that we developed last year and reviewed, we set a target of 60% in terms of cost coverage, revenues to expenditures. So continue exploring the future of Metchosin's Hall. And I will point out, I want everyone to be attentive to the lead bullet there. We are continuing to assess options for the Firehall, ensure community engagement is undertaken around options under consideration, and continue to explore grants and other financial support. So, and of course, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later as we move along in the evening. Thanks. Update bylaws, policies that support environmental protection, peaceful, livable community, housing requirements, and good governance. So we've identified a number of priority bylaws: Good Neighbor, Bylaw Notice Enforcement Regulation, Tree Preservation Bylaw, and the Alcohol Consumption Policy. And if we get through those, we might try and look at Subdivision Servicing Bylaw, Council Procedure Bylaw, business license bylaw and development procedure bylaw. So we are underway with the good neighbor bylaws, as you may have noticed. So thanks. Address public safety matters, and the initiative that we have underway right now is to develop delineators on Happy Valley and William Head roads, and these are the spots that are pyloned off during high traffic events down that way and down that way as well. So ongoing discussion as to how those look, and yeah. So yeah. And we've allocated budget for that as well. So thanks. Continue working to protect our environment, supporting initiatives focused on land conservation, biodiversity enhancement, and water and watershed protection. So the big one is working toward a new conservation zone and park designation for the buffer land. And this has been under discussion since I think I brought this, the possibility of a working group to council in early 2023. The conversations evolved, and we're now on the cusp of being able to act on the recommendations and I think what the ambitions are for the community around this green space. And with that, we'll be getting more from staff hopefully in the coming weeks here. And also to initiate a biodiversity and natural assets plan, and we'll be talking a little further about that as we go. So, support and be involved in opportunities to enhance agriculture, recreational, cultural, and community building activities. And we've already talked about the agricultural area plan, and it's great that this keeps coming up and is being freshly looked at in terms of implementation. And another goal is to complete the district's parks and trails master plan. And ideally, there'll be a new draft before Committee of the Whole in April at some point. So continue community engagement, and again, continue community engagement on key things like the school, the buffer land, the Firehall, and maybe even the biodiversity plan as well. So we tried to keep, I think that's it. Yeah, so we tried to keep this modest, again, knowing that we're near the end of term, that there's going to be new stuff coming in. So I think overall, hopefully an achievable priority plan. So yeah. Council, any thoughts? Councillor Donald.
I would just like to motion that the committee recommend council approve the District of Metchosin Council 2026 priorities.
If I may, Councillor Shooken, there is a public input component on the priorities.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, there is. Right. Oh, I see. Okay, thank you, Ms. Hanson. Are there any comments or questions? If you have any, please come to the microphone. Ms. Fritsch.
Great. Again, what I was talking about earlier being we've got expenditures and we need to have as much revenue planning as possible. So I found it somewhat ironic, the conversation we just had about doing the best we can with the Metchosin school, and yet this next plan really dives into using the school as a revenue source. And it seems to me, I coached basketball for years, we could never find a gym. Making sure that the gym is accessible and people seeking it can get what they need quickly seems really critical to that revenue piece. And so if it's not clear, or if it's difficult for staff internally or to tap into who knows what about where, I would suggest that's a piece to streamline so that it can very easily be turned into a good revenue source with strong engagement with the potential users. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hard to argue with or debate. I do think we're going to find ourselves having another discussion about the school, and ideally a focused one. And maybe the focus should be on revenue and how we manage that with the least impact to staff and whatnot. So, yeah. Okay. Seeing no more interest in commenting on a great priority plan, we will move on then. So, and toward the motion. Yes, okay. So that was brought forward by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Mayor Little. Any further discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. So the Firehall project proposed governance model. Mr. Payette, did you want to speak to this?
Thanks through the chair and through to the general public. Thanks for hanging in there for this one. Important, that's for sure. I believe everyone's pretty much had a chance to read the report. I'll just maybe read a little bit in the body of the report, emphasize some of the tasks we're recommending in the terms of reference, and then have a discussion. So the Firehall Steering Committee, or the Task Force, we're suggesting renaming it for clarity and giving it a time appreciation that the task force would be completed at the end of the project. And the task force would still be considered a committee of council as per the charter. So the role is to consider matters referred to them by council or staff and to provide recommendations or advice as the project moves forward, ensuring the project aligns with the community's needs and council's strategic direction. The task force shall provide valuable community input towards a successful project, identifying key matters and perspectives to council and the CAO and the project manager, reflecting the needs of the community, which are essential to understanding the scope and the benefits of the project. I'm proposing a project manager sooner than later. I believe that would bring some much needed objectivity and provide council with the roadmap that I believe the community is looking forward to. So in the terms of reference, I'll just maybe emphasize what we're asking the task force. At this time, the steering committee terms of reference are dated and they need kind of an injection of energy. So I'm suggesting that the task force can make recommendations and help in the hiring of a project manager, review and provide recommendations regarding the procurement and selection of key project deliverable partners, make recommendations for developing a project charter and a governance framework as a foundational reference, defining clear, measurable project scope and outcomes, ensuring execution and quality control measures are in place. Review significant project risks and key pre-construction matters brought forward by the project team that may impact scope, schedule, budget, overall project objectives and direction by council. And work with the CEO and the project manager to provide feedback on community input related to the project. Now I realize there's different schools of thought on the timing of a project manager. My recommendation to council is the sooner the better. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We're only talking a few extra months to get going here with the project manager. We're expecting to understand the financial envelope in the third quarter. The sooner we can get started on governance matters and charter and delineation of duties, objectivity would be a benefit and likely save money in the long run. Thank you.
Okay, committee. Thank you, Mr. Payette. I'm going to open discussion on this one. And I'll begin by just saying thank you to all the people who wrote in and who have attended the meeting and provided their comments. And there's some people with deep experience here. So, and I appreciate the perspective you bring on that, or bring to this matter from your experience. I can see why people were probably alarmed by how the terms of reference have been crafted, because they have been crafted, to my mind, I read this several times, but to my mind, very much aligned with getting option 1A completed. And what I understood from comments that have been received and from the open house is not everybody is on side with option 1A. And what we face now politically and to go forward with a decision is option 1A is unlikely to move ahead because of the 2-2 nature. We just know from past discussions that there are two of us who like and see the merit of option 1A, and there are two others who have some challenges with that. So speaking very broadly, I'm suspecting that right now we are not going to be able to move ahead without some deeper consideration of other options. And that is what I think we should direct ourselves toward doing right now. I hear Mr. Payette and what he's saying about hiring a project manager, but I think that we should look at getting some resourcing so we can have a look at and consider in a fair, objective, and clear way some other options before us, and including and keep option 1A as something as well. I think to my mind, it is foolish to say that we're going to start all over again, to do a reset, sure, but I think we also have to draw on some of the work that's already been done. My concern, though, is that if we don't do anything tonight, we are throwing this back into a realm in which there is no mechanism to consider options. And so what I would like to propose is that we set aside these for the evening, and I'll make a motion toward this. I would suggest that council direct staff to provide information on how to best resource additional scenario planning and options analysis on the Firehall replacement project. And if I have a seconder, I can...
Can you repeat that?
Sure. It's that council direct staff, and again, the committee is recommending that council direct staff. The committee direct council direct staff to provide information on how to best resource additional scenario planning and option analysis on the Firehall project. And so what I'm suggesting here is we look at hiring somebody or look at some sort of resource that can help us sort through the options. We have tapped, what I will say is we have tapped the committee to date. They have done what they think best, and they have brought us generally what they thought best. So what I would suggest is that we ask staff to consider a new approach to testing options, which may involve the committee, but it may also involve a paid resource as well. And to my mind, I am not sure what else we do with that. We can go back, we can do nothing tonight. I suspect neither of these motions will pass, and then we're left in a black hole. Maybe not to be that dramatic, but I don't know where we go if these don't pass. So Councillor Donaldson.
Councillor Shore-Sooke, is it possible to have that motion up on the screen? Is staff able to do that in real time? Thanks.
I'll second the motion for discussion.
Sure. Or we can maybe just wait till it's up.
Sure. If I may, to my mind, that's the same as option 3. Committee of the whole refer the report back to staff for further information. I think you're being precise on the information.
Yeah.
Maybe while that's going up, can we begin talking about it? We have a rough idea. What I was interested in when I read the document here, I found it confusing. And I want to ask through the chair of the CEO, is this a standard project management template that we're using, or did we inquire of the CRD or COMOX or Colwood, or where did we get this description. I imagine we're all quite sensitive to the talk of project management, given what's gone on with the police station to be built in Langford. And the call would council stopping and saying, wait a minute, how are we governing this? How are we managing it? Going over all that again. So I think getting it right would be a good place to start. And I have to say my faith in managing the project is somewhat shaken. We haven't, we went for this, faced a grant, stopped all the work that was being done, and got stuck with this unwieldy option where I think if we had just carried through and carried on with the people who were involved, we probably would be in a much different place today. We've had a delay of sounds like it'll be a delay of a year to get the grant, which we may or may not succeed in getting. So anyway, my question, I'm wandering here, through the chair was to the CAO, where did we develop this this governance model from?
Oh, through the chair. So we haven't actually developed the governance model, and just suggesting that we do develop a governance model and a chart through a charter, and that would give clarity to who's doing what and who's responsible for what. So that's the point, is to come up with a governance model.
Thank you. That's even more confusing to me. Here we've got a project manager, we've got a council, we've got the CAO, we've got the Firehall, so-called replacement task force, a technical working group with a description of how they work together. I would agree it's incomplete. And so is that what the governance, so we're not at a governance tonight, we're just talking about terms of reference of one committee that would fit into an unknown governance model?
Yeah, through the chair. So we would provide the terms of reference to the steering committee, task force, and have them review the information, and subsequent to that, start to develop a governance model that would answer to council's direction and provide clarity to the different entities that would be involved. So.
Thank you. And then I read also that the project manager will be developing a governance model, leading the development of a governance model and project charter. So there's a couple of people working on it, I suppose, leading to some of my confusion.
I'm going to just bring the committee back. We do have a motion on the floor and a seconder as well. And the motion is now on the screen. Now, Councillor Gray, I'm not disagreeing with you. There's some issues I have with, the terms of reference, but what I think we can focus on now is what we've all been asking for, is maybe some additional options. I maybe have not been asking for additional options, but I've also been trying to understand the scenarios that play out if we get the grant, if we get no grant, or if we get half the grant. So I think that's something that we have to consider as well. And as you pointed out, I think this is aligned with option 3, but it's directed toward bringing something back so we can do what I believe the community is asking us to have a look at as well. So, and as we do this, I think we'll have a chance to have another look at the terms of reference and Firehall Steering Committee terms of reference and project governance model.
Councillor Shooken, sorry to interrupt, was the motion seconded by Councillor Donaldson?
Mayor Little.
Mayor Little, okay, thank you.
Mayor Little.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a good idea. However, both Councillor Gray and you have talked about revising the terms of reference, and that we've asked staff to do that. They've revised the terms of reference, and that's what is included here, the draft terms of reference. And we need some body if we're going to look at options, who's going to look at options? Are we going to do it at this table? Wouldn't it be better for an advisory body that has engineers, and firefighters, and architects, and people and builders with experience to go through those other options and scenarios? If we have the full funding, if we don't have any of the grant funding, what can we do for the price tag of what was it, 7.3 or 7.8 million that we have in our grants that we've received and in our reserved? I think there was an extra 2 million to bring it up to 9.8, I think. So the different scenarios, we need some kind of a committee advisory. This is the CAO has aptly named this the task force, and that's actually a better word than committee, because it defines they have a task to work with, and it gives them a limited time. So this isn't something that's going to go on and on and on. So we're in this position where we've asked at this table for advice from staff to revise the terms of reference. They've sent it to us, and I think we should consider it. I get your point that if this is defeated, what does it mean for that committee? Well, I guess we've got that task force. I guess we would rely on the Firehall steering committee. Unfortunately, members have left the district. I think there was 2 that left the district. The fire chief is no longer on that, or the former fire chief will no longer be there. And so we need to repopulate that Firehall steering committee if we continue with that. We haven't dissolved that. So I think this is a good shift from the feasibility study. And we did look at the feasibility designs, and we still have that to look at, and we did get Class D estimates on that. We haven't even moved to the Class A estimates for either the preferred option or an alternate option. But I think it's best that we give this to a body that has more experience than we have at this table, unless we right now hire a project manager who goes through everything and then gives us advice on that.
I'll go to Councillor Donaldson and then Councillor Gray, but one thing I want to point out is the motion is structured so that staff may come back and say, yeah, keep the committee intact, or the steering committee intact, or revise it or something, but here's how we're going to look at the options. So I think it can be either or. What I would just note is right now the terms of reference before us talks about replacement of the hall. So it is aligned, I sense, to option 1A. And I feel like I'm sensing we're just not going to move ahead with that. That's my sense, but sorry to interrupt. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. This conversation's brought up a couple of different questions that I have. First of all, the Firehall Steering Committee has yet to be disbanded. So as far as I understand, they're waiting for their next assignment. Having said that, their assignment was derailed when we met June 5th of last year to have the COW meeting to discuss grant. At that point, prior to that, they were talking about space analysis. We had a couple meetings where we couldn't read the font, so it was too small. We couldn't get those discussions off the table. And they were going on to talk about things like the different concept drawings, the options. That all got sidetracked because we got focused on the grant. And after that joint meeting, everything changed. So the only meetings that came up after that with the Firehall Steering Committee were basically just housekeeping meetings. So there's still a committee. So I guess my question is, are we going to disband them? There are a couple of vacancies, but I look at what their terms of reference were and what they are now. We're reducing the numbers on the new terms of reference for the task force. So are we going to say thanks for the memories and give them a nice letter and then repost the positions, or are we going to continue with the people that are there? Are we going to fill in the vacancies? So I've got like 2 or 3 questions kind of merged together there, sorry. That I think that's what we need to understand is we have people there with some expertise. Are we going to follow through with where they left off last year? Because we haven't tapped into that resource. Or are we going to say that was the end of a chapter, we're going to have a new chapter now and do it all officially by disbanding it, reestablishing it to a different name and a different committee? That would be my first question. And then when we do that, my second question would be, what are we actually assigning them to do? Pick up where they left off, or where we're going to go forward and look at drawings beyond 1A, which wasn't, well, currently it's not being sorted here at the table from half of us supported.
Yeah, if I may, in answer to Mayor Little and Councillor Donaldson's points about the committee that exists, the Firehall Steering Committee, we don't want the tail wagging the dog. The committee exists, they've done some good work, and now we're at a stage where I think you've got a motion up here that says to our staff, how do we go ahead with these issues of scenario planning and options analysis? And it may well be the staff would say there's a role for the Firehall Steering Committee, or they might say no, as the mayor was offering a moment ago, maybe we need some professional help to do that, whose some contracts set it up that way. Maybe it's a mix of both, but that's really the question that you're posing to staff here. So I don't think Councillor Donaldson and Mayor Little were saying we're not using the steering committee, we're just saying, hang on a minute, we're going to take a look at this question here, and the staff will advise us where we sit with regards to the committee. So that's one point. I appreciate what you've done here, Councillor Shooke, in terms of trying to bridge the gap about what we might do. I think the part that's missing for me, there's 2 parts that are missing for me for this motion. It could be address an amendment or a subsidiary motion, and they are the needs analysis. Community needs analysis, not the needs of the building itself, but do we need, as is proposed with option 1A, a fire hall that's twice as big as our current fire hall? What is our need of our community? So I think it would be appropriate to make this to add the a needs analysis. How do we get to that? What's the best resource to get that done? Maybe I'll stop there, but my other points about finances generally, and I can come back to that. So because there are other people who may want to comment on what
So, Councillor Gray, you're proposing an amendment to the motion?
I would do so to add the words, the best resource, additional scenario planning, needs analysis, and option analysis on the Firehall replacement project.
Okay, I'll second that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the amendment. Yeah. Councillor Gray, anything more to say?
Yeah, I just think it's a component that we need to, in order for the community to come together on this, they need to understand what our needs are written down. By the way, I can't give you the precise date, but we were promised this as part of the feasibility study by the CEO, and he said it's in the contract, and it wasn't in the contract. So it's been really difficult to wrestle that and say, well, gee, we never dotted that I and crossed that T. I think it would help us immeasurably to know what our need is that we're attempting to fill here.
I'll just add that I think there's some different perspectives in terms of what a needs analysis is, but what I also hear is that people believe that one has been done. I stood with the architect as he explained to a resident the needs analysis that was done in terms of the spatial components based on conversation with the staff. So in some respect, a needs analysis has been done and baked into the design. But is there a deeper analysis in terms of community size, call-outs, fire risk, and all that? Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, the community needs analysis, not the fire department building analysis.
Yeah, okay.
I hope I got that word down. Community needs analysis, yes. Okay.
So I will be supporting the amendment to the motion. So, Mayor Little.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Gray, how are you going to measure the community needs analysis? What are you proposing here? So as Councillor Shooken said, this is the community needs analysis. There was an umbrella needs analysis done. It wasn't, as noted by one of the our constituents, it wasn't at the granular level. It was based on what is available now and what is needed in the future for the next 50 years spatially. And so I'm just wondering what exactly do you want to measure, and how do you propose doing that?
So through the chair, I'm no expert on this, but I think Councillor Shooken just explained it very well. We did not have a community needs analysis. In other words, what does the community need in terms of the fire service going forward? And I imagine that kind of planning, when we get the best resource available to do that, would come back to us and tell us things like, you don't have your community is not intending to grow, so you don't need a larger outfit here. You're doing fairly well. You don't need ladder trucks because you're just going up, need to get up these laneways and, difficult laneways. That our medical callouts are about this big right now, and are they expected to grow or not, depending on our population, the demographics of the community, are they expected to change? So it's those kinds of things. Obviously, I can't answer the question you're asking, but I can give you a flavor of the sorts of things that we have not yet looked at. And that helps us determine what do we need, and then we build accordingly. And then within that, there'll be issues of, do we have the right number of shells, and is the building tall enough or short enough, and all those other questions that were raised in the JDA work that was done. I don't think we should throw that out.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments. The only problems that I can see is that some of the community members may not fully appreciate what is needed in a post-disaster building as well. They may not appreciate what is involved in providing a safe environment for the health and welfare of the firefighters that is noted in the what is it noted in the safety code, and so we've noted there's a number of deficiencies in the current apparatus bay, the contamination, the exhaust, the separation of equipment with the living quarters, many of the deficiencies which the public may not know about. And so we may come to conclusions from a community needs analysis that may conflict with the overriding BC building code and what it entails in a post-disaster standard. And so we would have to be able to mitigate that and to manage expectations. I can't imagine that we would want to replace the administration building with a smaller administration building because that has met the size, has met our needs for the past, since it was built. I can't imagine that we would be able to dwindle that down. Yeah, and at some point, I think we're going to have to ask our new fire chief to weigh in. Not now, he's only been on the job for a week, but once he understands all the reports, I think we're going to have to get some direction from him as well, because he has that experience. Why not use it? He's got 30 years of firefighting experience. And he could probably have some good ideas, and he's been through some fire hall rebuilds. So I think we should use that resource as well.
Sure, and what you've been talking about is exactly the building assessment that was done. But what I'm interested in is not that question, but what does the community need? And so we can leave it there. The other question I wanted to raise was I was disturbed to read the note here when it on the top of page 44 in the discussion, it gets into, you know, the finances available. And it's kind of like all this money is available, except that it forgets about the fiscal cliff that we've been talking about in the budget meetings. And so when we talked about a small amount of money, well, $200,000, maybe that's not so small, going to the permissive tax exemptions, that's balanced against things like an estimated $3 million annual funding gap to our reserves, ongoing staff capacity issues, provincial cost downloading, increased long-term asset renewal requirements. And now we have the news of the provincial government and the huge deficit and, you know, the cuts that they're making. So I just think I appreciate the motion here, but the other part of this, and in speaking in favor of the amendment, is not the community needs analysis, but also at some point we'll be talking about finances again. And what are we capable of paying for, given the very difficult financial situation that's been described to us by our CFO. Anyway, I speak in favor of the amendment.
Okay, any further comments on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? Okay, and that carries. Okay. Sorry, back to the main motion. The one thing I would add, though, I feel like this is open to allowing for further input from the steering committee, from the new chief, from residents. It does leave open the possibility of hiring some sort of experts or people with expertise in this area to help guide us, or to, you know, possibly come to this chamber one day and do a scenario analysis as well. So yeah, or a side-by-side analysis of various options. So, and again, that's something we'll ideally get back from staff, and I suspect that the new chief might even be able to inform that process as well. So are there any further comments on the main motion? So Councillor Donaldson.
Just one, refer direct staff. You can eliminate one of those words maybe? Either refer staff or direct staff.
That's just a typo, just ignore that. It'll say that council direct staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. That's all.
Mayor Little? Or Councillor Gray?
Yeah, just the very last, second last word on the Firehall replacement project. So I would rather say that the Firehall renewal project, because again, it tilts in the direction of option 1A like that.
Could we even just call it the Firehall project?
Thank you.
Ms. Hanson, do we need an amendment to that? If we get rid of replace?
If the
replacement pro.
If the group is in agreement, then it can just be a friendly amendment.
Okay, Mayor Little.
Yeah, no, I thought that as of last September, and certainly at the open house, there was not 100% agreement, but unanimity amongst people that at least the, not the apparatus bay, but the administration building needs to be replaced. And so I thought, I feel like we're going back like 12 steps here. It is a replacement. We're not going to, definitely not. I thought we had agreed that at least the administration building needs to be replaced. And I think all council members at this table have stated that, and we can go back to the videos to see that. So why not keep the replacement in? I think what a member of the community pointed out, that the concept, the 1A concept, was a concept with the intent to pivot based on our our financial realities. I even wrote an article in Metchosin Muse, and I clearly pointed that out, that the concept or the option 1A was for the purpose of the grants. And once we understood our full financial house and we had that in order, we would either accept that or pivot or move to some kind of a alternate scenario. So I'm not really in favor of removing the word replacement, because it feels like we've gone back. We're gone way back before the feasibility study. It's not a hill I'm going to die on, but I think it's words mean things, and I think that is an important word. It doesn't mean a full replacement, but at least I'd be interested in hearing my colleagues if there's anybody that wants to renovate the administration building. It is a cinder block building that is not to post-disaster standard by any means. It's not even reinforced by rebar, and it's an unsafe building. I'm dismayed that we're not talking about at least replacing the administration building.
I move that we strike the word replacement.
Say that again.
I move an amendment that we strike the word replacement from the motion.
I'll second, but I believe that, again, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Shooken. So I agree with the mayor in not about the replacement word. I think if we're going to do something with that, we have to be very clear what is the Firehall project, right? We're really now splitting hairs, because we do have the admin building. You're quite correct, Mayor Little. I have not heard one person in this community or in this room or at this table saying that admin building should not be replaced. That is one thing we can all agree on. But what I have heard continually is keeping it separate from the apparatus bay, and I'm not saying it's evenly or not. I just there's mixed views on that. So the fire hall, does that, you know, what is that? Is that the admin? Is that the apparatus bay? Like, we're now going to get into the weeds of it. So yes, we know the one building must be replaced, and it you know, with the various analysis, community needs, building needs, we know that it has to be, or it has been discussed long before I was ever appointed to that committee, it was going to be bigger. It wasn't going to be grandiose to the JDA 1A option, but that was new in the last year. So we might have to do some wordsmithing there, but certainly that one part of the building will be replaced. But that's not what this motion says. It says the project, which is...
Yeah. So I'll just kick in if I could. I think what the goal of striking replacement is to make it in some ways more neutral. But at the same time, we all know what the Firehall project is. It is talking about the admin building, and it is talking about the apparatus bay. And I believe there is agreement that the admin building does need to be replaced. I think there's widespread agreement on that. The disagreement, and I think there's even agreement that there are issues with the apparatus bay. There's disagreement on how deep those are and how significant the fix is going to be. Replacement, upgrade, or just hold off for a bit. So I have no issues myself with striking replacement, and also knowing that Firehall project is inclusive of apparatus bay and admin building. That's my sense, and I think people will be able to go back to the tape to kind of clarify that if they want to. So I think in terms of, we've heard this a number of times, bringing the community together, bringing council together, I think that's maybe, to my mind, the safest thing to do, is to neutralize and remove the suggestion that replacement is on the agenda, when there might be other options. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, is simply the point is that the discussion we've been having is replacing or not replacing the apparatus bay. And so striking the word, it gives us all the options, not just limited options that are tied to one scenario. So it's keeping it broad.
Motion on the floor to amend by striking replace. If there are no further comments, I'm going, striking replacement. Sorry, I will now call the question. Those in favor of the motion? Okay, great. Okay, and now if we could, let's vote on the main motion. Okay, I will call the question. All in favor? Sorry? Yes, yeah, that one there's, yes, thank you. Wow, that's just like magic. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, anything, okay. Okay, great, we're gonna move on. Thank you very much, everyone. And I will just point out there is somebody who wrote a letter to us and asked that we work together. I think we've demonstrated that we can do that. And we are keeping options open and we're looking at others. So, okay, thank you very much, Council. Committee. Okay, so Councillor's update. And so speaking of fire matters, so our tribute to Stephanie Dunlop is on Sunday, March 15th from 1 to 3 p.m. It'd be great if everyone can attend. Again, it'll be a very simple event, but I think we'll have a good speaking program, which should start at 1:30. So the City of Vancouver has taken some action on bright vehicle headlights, and I wanted to test whether people thought we should take similar action. So just simply put, excessive vehicle headlights, they're increasingly common on our roadways. The City of Vancouver report states that bright headlight glare has been linked to reduced nighttime visibility, delayed reaction times, increased collision risk, and particularly harm to seniors and people with vision impairments. And they note that other jurisdictions, and especially in Europe, have begun to examine limits on headlight brightness. And Vancouver, interestingly, has adopted a Vision Zero goal around climate action and transportation policies, which encourage walking and cycling in transit. And then all of these are put at risk with bright headlights. And City of Vancouver, they're acting in several ways. So they're writing to Transportation Canada to seek action at the federal level. They're writing to ICBC. I forget exactly why. And they're also bringing the issue to FCM the Federation of Canadian Municipalities later this year. So, okay, yeah. Any thoughts, Council or Committee?
Would you like someone to move the motion?
Sure.
I'll do so. The Committee of the Whole recommend that Council request the Mayor write a letter to the federal government expressing Council's views on headlights and traffic safety, the views being those expressed in this Councillor's update.
Second that.
Great. Councillor Donaldson seconds. And
just think, that we're living in this rural community where we have no lights at night, these roads, this is something that I think is important to our residents and worth pursuing.
Great. And I just want to pass on a thank you to Mr. Eric White for bringing this to our attention. So, Mayor Little, or?
Yeah, I was just going to say this was originally brought to our attention from one of our farmers. So I think he'll be pleased that we're moving on this. Since that night, I have taken notice of some of the headlights, and they are very bright, and I can't imagine what our wildlife. I think it would exacerbate accidents with wildlife and owls in particular, who are scrounging for food late at night when people are buzzing around the roads with these headlights. So I'd like the letter to be, focused on our rural sensibility, also on the creatures that we inhabit this land with as well.
Great.
Thank you.
And Councillor Jones?
I agree. It's one of the reasons I don't like driving at night, but you do have to sometimes. That's why we're here tonight. But the fact also we don't have highly reflective painted lines on our roads either. And we have inquired about that before. It's very cost prohibitive, but maybe in the future we could consider that. But it's certainly cheaper than putting up streetlights. But the blinding lights is well, I come to a slow, and if it's a rainy night, that's even worse.
Yeah.
So no, I really appreciate Mr. White bringing that forward at a previous meeting. It's good ideas.
Great. Okay. Yeah, and I'm supportive. I can help draft some points for the letter as well. So, okay, call the question. All in favor? Great, that's carried. I've included the work plan that PTASK has put together for 2026, and this is just a recommendation in the draft Parks and Trails Master Plan, and it's on page, I forget what page.
61.
Yeah. And there it is. I don't know if anyone has comments. And it's actually fairly ambitious given that all of the volunteers have lives and are busy on a bunch of fronts. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment. I mean, this shows great leadership and transparency, not only to council, but to the community who have asked questions about what Parks and Trails is up to. This is a very detailed plan. So I commend you and the Parks and Trails Committee for providing this to us. It's very helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll just, sorry, go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to say thanks to David Shanks for taking the chair, and then for these new members you mentioned, Ian Baxter, Emma Horgan, and Chris Thibodeau. That's great having them come along and join the Parks and Trails Committee. With regards to the plan itself, looks great to me, but man, lots of work there. Can you remind us, Councillor Shooke, on the budget that PTAS gets, and does that fit in here? Oh, sorry if that's, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Just because I can see there's a couple here that are going to cost money, I expect. The Beckingham Trail, the Hillman Trail, and then the maintenance work. Maybe more than that.
You know, it shouldn't. I'm recalling that PTAS gets $5,000 a year for trails maintenance and $10,000 for trail capital development. So that would be like the wood chips that might go on the trail, I think. Maintenance would be gas for the chainsaws, even though we don't use chainsaws.
That's helpful, thanks. Yeah. And then that puts this in light in terms of what outlay there's associated with it.
Yeah.
Do you want a motion to receive?
Sure.
So I move to receive the Parks and Trails Work and Maintenance Plan for 2026 with thanks to the committee.
Second by Mayor Little. And further discussion? Councillor Jones?
I just have one question. So speaking of financing these projects, does the developer pay for the Beckingham Trail to go in? Is that part of the...
That should be the case.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All phases of it?
I think we have to check back with Mr. Payette as to what the final agreement was, and yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, not abutting up to the next trail.
Well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's what
that makes
Mr. Payette is saying.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Great. Call the question in terms of receipts. Yeah. All in favor? Yeah. Thank you. Great. Okay. Okay,
Councillor Shooke, sorry, if just looking at the time, if we could get a motion to go past 10 o'clock?
So for Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Gray. Oh, it's all good. Oh, yeah, all in favor? Yes. Yeah.
Could we have a 90-second break?
Absolutely. Next item on the agenda, biodiversity and natural asset plan. Oh, we're back. We're back. We're good? We're good? Okay, we're back. Call to order. I think that's what I say. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, so this is the agenda topic is the biodiversity and natural assets planning. And you'll recall that last year, MEASC presented a draft outline and with a positive reception. We then shared that document with PTASC, the Ag Committee, Healthy Communities, the APRM, the Invasive Species Group, Metchosin Foundation, Bilson Watershed Habitat Protection Association, Metchosin Biodiversity Project, Rocky Point Bird Observatory, and then individual residents who were interested, and also with staff. As a result, we made revisions to the document and recast it with a focus on what we might potentially do, the district might potentially do. And now we are recommending that we refer this document to staff for next steps, or that the committee do. Maybe I'll read the motion. If it's a second, I can explain a little bit more. So the motion is that the committee recommend council direct staff to review the biodiversity natural assets draft plan and prepare recommended next steps.
Second.
Thank you. So I want to clarify that this request is not asking council to adopt this plan, but rather to take the step of seeking staff advice on next steps. And the kind of thing I would hope staff might look at would be practicality and cost, feasibility. There may be some assumptions we made which aren't appropriate. Consider what might be the right order for things to be done. Would tackle some with policy, or do we need to look at bylaws? Are there learnings from other jurisdictions that staff are aware of? And then to be aware of some of the points in the document already in place, but they're included for completeness. And I just wanted to mention the regional context. The CRD and the mayor's the vice chair of the CRD are now, I think, moving forward with the regional biodiversity strategy, just the beginnings. The CRD is also exploring a UNESCO special regional biosphere designation. And we've got a new group in the West Shore called the West Shore Initiative for Sustainable Ecosystems. We're planning a West Shore Bioregional Summit to encourage biodiversity-centered municipal planning. So this kind of work fits in well with regional work and then the West Shore efforts. And then I suppose the other why we would like to proceed is that this follows on our Climate and Biodiversity Declaration. MEASC feels it's the most effective work we can do to respond to climate change and the biodiversity loss. And then, of course, it's in our strategic plan and in our 2026 priorities to initiate something like this. So I can explain a little further, but that's what I've got for council, for committee of the whole tonight.
Councillor Donaldson, anything?
Just had a question on the part about tax policy. It says number 4 and 5, which is a repeat from the above. That could just be a numerical error. So the district should include protection of forest canopy when considering eligibility for permissive tax exemptions with community nonprofits with significant land holdings. I think this is a question, it's unfortunate our CFO isn't here this evening, but I think this already might be part of the format on how he deciphers who gets, who is eligible and who is not for those types of fundings.
Correct. So this is one of the areas that council's already passed a policy on, but in order to provide all the detail there, I've put it down in the document. It's included in the document. The other one is number, and you're right about the numbering being off, but if you look at the bottom, number 9, the district should continue membership with the Capital Regional Invasive Species Partnership. We're already there. And then number 10, of course, we are hoping to implement fully the Metchosin Agriculture Area Plan.
Mayor Little, I have some comments, but go ahead.
Yeah, I have a few comments. in terms of goal number 3, you talk about the environmental development permit area. I think all of council and our community should understand what those policies and designations. So I would have appreciated something else in there that rather than state that, should inform the enactment of this with some flesh in that explanation. I think one component that is missing here before it's sent to staff, there should be an open house similar to what the Parks and Trails did, an open house so that the community can weigh in regarding this because the staff might go ahead and do a lot of work and then take it out to the community, and that might change. I think the final stop should be with staff. So definitely, just like we've seen with the housing, we need some community engagement, as we saw with the Parks and Trails master plan. We had an opportunity for community engagement, and I think that should happen before we go to staff as well. I thought that in the where is it here, the land stewardship, the church should also be mentioned because they have land and they're also now moving to some kind of conservation corridor in collaboration with Bilston Creek Farm. So I think they should be listed there, as well as the Victoria Humane Society, because while they had stated last year they weren't interested in putting a covenant on, they did state that they had given assurances to Miss Peggy Jervis's family that they were going to protect the land and certainly protect the trees that Peggy was very interested in protecting. So they should be listed here too in terms of land stewardship. I was wondering about the designation P4. You mentioned that in here, this new designation, other than the buffer land, was there another tract of land that you were interested in for that? And I've got some other questions, but maybe I'll stop there.
Great. Okay, Councillor Gray, is there anything you want to respond to?
Yeah, well, starting at the last point, the P4 designation, I don't know, but once we have a zone, then we need to apply it wherever it makes sense. And I wonder, although I don't know, perhaps some of the land that BC Parks Foundation has purchased that they're intending to protect in perpetuity. An example of that is the Hummingbird Hill that Councillor Shooken wasn't able to make it. I think you weren't feeling well, but the rest of us were at that announcement where the BC Parks Foundation has bought that property. And I thought maybe that's one that we could talk to the owners about, whether it makes sense to zone that to the conservation area zoning that we're talking about. I mean, we don't have maybe this gets to that point about having an open house and this and that. Our thinking was get the staff to find out, oh, wait a minute, some of these don't make sense at all. You know, these are big jobs, cost too much money. We're not likely to do them. Once we get this narrowed down a little bit, then a bigger discussion before we adopt a plan. I'm not talking about adopting at the moment, getting some of the background done on it.
But on that, we already know we received a report about what the planner is doing at the last meeting. We know that she's going full out for the last little stretch here. And so I would really recommend having the open house because remember what she planned, we don't have a lot of capacity there. So I'm trying to suggest that do things that we have control over because having it sit with the planner is not very productive.
Mr. Pyatt wants to say a word.
Yeah, through the chair, that basically was what I was going to say. Was our months are already kind of booked up for the rest of the council's term. The planner only is here 2 days a week, so would this supersede the bufferland planning, or like when, or would we find more staffing capacity? What are you recommending here to do all this?
Sure, I'm happy to respond. I'll just turn to the strategic plan strategic priorities we just approved a moment ago. And so it seems to me it is on our list of things to be looking at. And all that we're looking for is to initiate it. If you see it tonight, pass it to the planner. If she can get to it, great. If she can't get to it till later, that's fine with me as well. The point is to move it along and see what we can do. At the same time of doing that, I would entertain the idea of having a public event. Of course, that takes up staff time as well. So I'm happy to chat with the planner about what she might think and the CEO, what might be the best way to go.
Through a question to the chair, how much staff time did the Parson Trails open house require?
None, essentially. Yeah, no, it was all a PTask thing, so it's definitely possible.
Okay.
So, okay, yeah.
I would think it would be in your best interest to go out and do that public engagement, because even though it's in our strategic plan, the reality is the planner gave us a report on what she has on her plan, and this won't supersede anything else that's on that. And I think there's things that you can do rather than waiting it until the end of the year. That's what I would advise.
As I'm happy to pursue that as well, but I would like to get in the hands of staff and have some conversations about it. It has, by the way, been to PTAS, the Ag Committee, to Healthy Communities, to MISC, to APRM, to Metchosin Foundation, Wilson Watershed People, Biodiversity Project, RPBO, that's the Rocky Point Bird Observatory, and a number of individual residents. But an open house might attract more people, and I like the idea of promoting it and hearing what people have to say.
And on that, what kind of feedback did you get from these different organizations, and was all the feedback incorporated? I didn't see any of that. So
yeah, yes, it was. And what it had to do with was language, making terms the same, focusing, as I mentioned, on the district's role. So the previous document had put together both the community work and the district's work. And so one of the big comments was to shift those apart. And people are excited about it.
So I will support the motion, but I do believe it should be in line, as in behind everything else that the planner has. And I would say that the most significant conservation effort that this council will have made in 4 years is the bufferland. And it would be really good to get the bufferland lined up in terms of the park designation and whatnot. And it's part of the plan that's here as well. So we really need to allocate resourcing for that. Sure, let's get it in. The one thing I will say though, just the technical complexity that's outlined in the plan versus staff resources as they exist now and may exist next year or the year before, like, is really daunting in terms of how this will all be achieved. So it just, yeah, it is something to keep an eye on. And I could see having some initial feedback from staff, but I think there's a lot more work to do in terms of prioritization and understanding that potentially some of these actions are like they're 6 figures, like stacked on top of each other in terms of mapping, things like flood control, aquifer recharge, shoreline protection, et cetera, et cetera. They're big items for sure. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so an example, I think you've provided a good one. The notion was to get the staff, and number one job, it seems to me, out of this is the bufferland work that's in the plan. I wasn't suggesting all these things be done, but that our plan would say, well, that one I'm doing, this one I'm doing, this is in train, this is in train. These other ones are going to need to wait. And some of them will be, she may turn back and say, well, can you be asked to do some further work so she can understand it better, just to begin that conversation, get it in the queue, as you say. I'd much appreciate that from my council colleagues.
Thank you. And through the chair, regarding tax policy, the district should explore the use of taxes incentives in support of Section 219 covenants. I'm a little bit wary about this because of the state of our finances. We've heard not only from community members who have been paying attention, but also from our CFO that we need to concentrate on the revenue. And with exploring the use of tax tax incentives to provide covenants for private properties that provide ecosystem services to the district. I mean, there's many of our community members that have had a designation of the Habitat Acquisition Trust, and so they may come to us and say, well, look what we're doing to provide a canopy for Metchosin and for the region, and look what we're doing for everything that exists here, and are providing that stewardship. And so I think a lot of properties in Metchosin could, under those criteria, apply for a tax incentive. But I think we have to be very careful with that. And also, remember, we were told just last week at the finance meeting that the District of Metchosin provides 6% of our annual revenue to supporting organizations in not-for-profit community organizations for their volunteer and otherwise work. So I think I'm not as in favor of the tax policy item number 5. In saying that, I see this not as a one-term plan. This is possibly a decade plan. I think this is laudable and really fits with the sensibilities of the community residents, the residents of Metchosin. I would also like to see that article that Mr. Fletcher referenced that was published in Nature in the 1960s. I didn't get the author or the lead author, so I'd like to have that provided to council through Councillor Gray as well. And then, yeah, thank you.
Okay, no more comments. Thank you, Mayor Little, and I'll call the question. All in favor?
So what we voted on here?
There's been, Councillor Gray moved, yeah, that, and seconded by Councillor Donaldson, if I'm recalling. Yes. Okay, all in favor?
Oh, hold it, but this doesn't talk anything about the public engagement. That if it's not a resolution, it won't happen. So I think we can amend this motion.
Yep. Well, do you want to propose an amendment?
Can I just, before we jump in, can I just speak?
If I may.
Mayor, sorry, Ms. Hanson, go ahead.
Want to vote on this question and then make a motion to have the environmental committee have an open house, just to make it cleaner.
Sure. Yeah,
that was my point. I've already agreed, and I think I've signaled I'm going to have me hold an open house. So you can pass the motion or not. I've already said we'll do it.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, let's vote on this. So, call the question on this motion. All in favor? Okay. And
I'd like to put a motion forward that the environmental select committee, advisory committee, hold an open house for the community regarding this. This greater protection, Metchosin biodiversity and natural assets.
I'll second that.
Yeah, no, I think this is really important because the community has spoken very loudly that they want to have engagement, and certainly this is significant because it will be a long-lasting natural asset, not plan, but statement. And so I think the community would be very interested in attending the workshop, or the open house rather, and hearing more about it. and they might have ideas about the unintended consequences of this that we haven't identified here. And I would hope that that would happen before the staff would review it.
Councillor Donaldson.
No, I think it's all been said. Thank you.
Okay, I will call the question on the motion for me asked to hold an open house. All in favor? Great, that's carried. Great, thank you for your guidance, Ms. Hanson.
Okay, in the essence of time, I suspect everybody has read through this. If there's any questions, you can ask me about the West Shore Library portfolios that I have. But I did want to highlight about the coolest night of the year. It was a fundraiser that some of us participated in recently, and it was reported to me just this week that the team I was aligned with, which was the Barrier Busters of Access West Shore Group, we raised $2,025 so far. Those donations are still being accepted till March 31st. The West Shore Walk, so throughout the West Shore, we raised $61,444. And across Canada, $15 million, $15,205,000 and $877. That's a big number. So well over $15 million so far raised in Canada to help people who are experiencing hurt, hunger, or homelessness. The local funds will go to support Pacific Center Family Services Association, and there were funds raised in Shore-Sooke, and they go to where Mayor Little, you were out there.
The Shore-Sooke shelter. Sorry.
Yes, yes. So it was phenomenal weather. In the photo, everybody's wearing scarves except me. It was a very warm afternoon compared to last year, so it was a good event. So that's an annual thing that that several of us do each year. The only other thing I wanted to mention, you may have received in your mailboxes, residents would have received something from the CRD regarding the Regional Canada Goose Management Programs. This happened last year as well, and so they're looking for input from residents throughout Metchosin, all over, but Metchosin specifically because this is where we live. And so if people could have a look at that and participate, how it works for them. They're looking for input if you see geese where they may be nesting, because they will be doing some egg addling. There's various ways of managing geese that is in this brochure, but it is available for everybody that has a mailbox. So I will be promoting a little bit more of that because there's some dates when they molt. That'll be in June, and you'll recall that they wreak havoc on our producers' fields. Anybody that's trying to grow food, like our farmers, is having an extremely difficult time. Hay fields are being decimated. The amount of crops is unreal that farmers across the region, all the way out on the peninsula as well. And we put a resolution last year that went all the way up to UBCM, is now with the province, and so we're hopefully going to see some action on that. And the only last thing I have to say is the Metchosin Grown Society is doing a lot of fundraising, and one of the things they're doing is a blueberry plant sale. That's coming up pretty quick to do orders right now. They do have a website, metchosingrown.ca, and the pickup date, it's a prepay, so that'll be April 12th to pick up your blueberry plants. So if you're interested in blueberries, there's several varieties that they have available. That's all for me. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Donaldson, or for the chair, as your Councillor Donaldson, we may want to ask staff to put the CRD link on our website because we have had farmers that have spoken here at council meetings regarding the loss of their hard-earned dollars and agricultural starts, as well as the farmers on the peninsula. And the CRD has been very responsive to those farmers in this. So I think we could provide that link so that people can weigh in.
I will leave this copy because I have 2 copies. So I'll leave that for staff tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the update, Councillor Donaldson. We're done.
Motion to adjourn.
So Councillor Gray, or Councillor Donaldson. Okay.
Councillor Gray, you're not using your tablet. I thought we had gone to a paperless form. You're not using your tablet anymore?
No, I am. What I'm doing is printing the documents that I'd like to have in hard copy, and then using the tablet for the ones that I don't need hard copy.
Okay.
Okay, and with that, motion to adjourn, we've second, blah, blah. Okay, we're done. Thank you.